3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of CBS Sports Radio here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to what is a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local CBS Sports Radio affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming on YouTube. 855-212-4CBS is the number to jump on in. 855-212-4227. You could always interact with me on the good old cesspool of Twitter or on Instagram, where I'm always straight flexing at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. We're rocking and rolling all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. We're going to be joined by great college basketball insider Jon Rothstein at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 1:20 p.m. Pacific. And then the final hour of the show at 5:20 p.m. Eastern, 2:20 p.m. Pacific from the 8-1 Philadelphia Eagles going into their bye week. The Pro Bowler and James Bradberry, defensive back, will stop by. Got Moist Mike and also Stuart Kovacs jamming out with me. And let's get to the football game from last night. And unfortunately, I was in attendance for that. You know, I always love going to a football game, even though I didn't have a ton of time to tailgate beforehand because I was doing the show until 6 yesterday. But I got to the stadium at about like 7:15 or so and had about like 35 minutes of tailgate. Got some sandwiches, got some wings. They had some pierogies as well in this tailgate that I stopped by, and had a few sips of alcohol, to say the least, because you probably needed it going into that game last night. Because when you watch those two teams, the Jets and the Chargers, you just have to say to yourself, where are these teams going? And these teams, you didn't walk away from the game with either team feeling great. Like, sure, you're a Chargers fan. You needed the win. You got the win. Now you guys are 4-4. But no one after that game last night should say, wow, I'm really scared of the Los Angeles Chargers, and I expect the Chargers to go to the playoffs. Like, I don't get how you would formulate those words unless you are that crazy gal who is the big-time Chargers fan that went viral a few weeks ago when she was at SoFi Stadium and they were showing her on the screen, just screaming her you-know-what off, going wild when the Chargers were about to lose to the Dallas Cowboys. There is no way to feel confident about this Chargers team. And the shame with the Chargers, and there's a few teams like this in the NFL, the Buffalo Bills, the Dallas Cowboys are two of the other teams, and it's in different levels, in different degrees, but they all have the looks going into a season of a team that at one point in the offseason you say, wow, Dallas with their loaded roster, they could be dangerous. Or, oh, wow, Buffalo, they could be a Super Bowl contender. Or look at the Chargers, just only if Brandon Staley can coach, they are loaded with talent. And all three of those teams, through the first 9 weeks of the season, I can't tell you that I'm confident with them. The Cowboys, I'm confident that they'll make the playoffs, but I can guarantee you that they're going to be going home early in the playoffs, and their ceiling is probably the divisional round. Because you have a very good defense in the Dallas Cowboys. You have an offense that even when Dak Prescott plays well like he did up against the Eagles on Sunday, that was an offense that with the game on the line, you had two opportunities to go win it. You couldn't put the ball in the end zone. I don't want to sound like a broken record from yesterday, but they were on the 6-yard line with 27 seconds to go, and their final snap was taken from the 27-yard line in Philadelphia territory. So you go from the Eagles 6 to the Eagles 27. That's almost impossible to do. So I don't feel good about Dallas. I look at the Bills. I was maybe thinking before the season, and I did not believe that the Bills were going to go to the Super Bowl this year, but we were going to learn a lot about the Buffalo Bills, and maybe it'd be more encouraging than what people thought, because 2 years ago, everyone was in on the Buffalo Bills. You couldn't find 2 seasons ago an analyst or a pundit that was not picking the Buffalo Bills to go to the playoffs and to win the Super Bowl. You just couldn't find it. Every single person not only had them in the playoffs, but they had them in the Super Bowl and hoisting the Lombardi Trophy for the first ever time. And then last year they regressed, and everyone jumped off the bandwagon of the Buffalo Bills heading into this season. And through the first 9 weeks, you've seen more bad than good with the Buffalo Bills. And there's nothing inspiring with them that would suggest, outside of the names on their roster and what you were latching onto from a few years ago, that they're going to be in Las Vegas playing in the Super Bowl. So how you look at the Cowboys, how you look at the Bills is also similarly to how we look at the Chargers, where I understand there weren't Super Bowl expectations heading into this season for the Los Angeles Chargers, but you paid your quarterback a king's ransom. I know Mike Williams is out for the year, but you have Keenan Allen, who, that was the best part of the game. He made a sick one-handed catch. You got Quentin Johnston, who they're still trying to figure out, but he's a good wide receiver coming out of TCU. You have Austin Eckler, who's now back and healthy. You have a good enough offensive line. And defensively, I know your defense isn't playing up to the level that they should, and I can't really praise the defense last night because we'll get to the Jets in just a second. Their offense is a disgrace. And their offense is just marinated in incompetence. And there's a lot of problems, as everybody knows, on the Jets' offensive side of the ball. But yeah, sure, like Bosa was awesome. Khalil Mack was awesome in the game last night. Derwin James set the tone with a big hit. But the Chargers' defense statistically has not been good this year. So what, I now need to get all energetic and all exuberant and try to paint a picture after one game and tell you, oh, wow, this defense is coming. Oh, wow, this defense is going to be great. Heck, if the defense couldn't look like the 85 Bears last night against the stinking Jets, they never would look like a resemblance of a good defense. So the Chargers, I walk away from that game as someone that was neutral. I went into that building, Chargers, Jets, I don't care who won. I didn't make a bet on who was going to win. All I had was Austin Eckler anytime touchdown and Breece Hall anytime touchdown. And walking away from that game last night, yes, of course, the Chargers played a well-rounded game. You got the punt return. Defensively, they were really damn good. And then offensively, they just didn't make mistakes. But I didn't walk away from that stadium and MetLife Stadium in the swamps of Jersey last night inspired. Like, look at the Bengals, for example. The Bengals got off to a slow start. And now, through 9 weeks of the season, even though their record isn't what it should be, and it's not indicating of a great football team, there's a feeling now around the Bengals that they're going to soar in the second half of the season, and they're going to be one of the best teams in the league. So you could stumble, you could stub your toe out of the gate and still rectify it and present hope for the rest of the season. But the Chargers, even if they get into the playoffs, I can't tell you I trust this team because they're a team that it's clear their ceiling probably for this year would just be getting that final wild card spot. And if that's the case, this team didn't improve this year. This team regressed because where they were a year ago was they were a playoff team who had a big lead at halftime against the Jaguars. And I know they lost in the wild card round, but if they just get back there this year, that's not an accomplishment. It's expected that they should be in the playoffs, but it's not an accomplishment to make the playoffs, if you understand what I'm saying. This Chargers team, they need to take a step forward. And I just don't see, and I don't think it's likely that they're going to take a step forward, and that would not only be making the playoffs once again, but winning a playoff game. I don't see how anyone in America right now, unless you are a Chargers fan, could feel confident with this team. And it's a shame because this is an easy team to root for. They have a ton of likable players, but I look around the AFC right now, I'll tell you this, the Chiefs, we all know, are a playoff team. The Bengals are a playoff team. The Ravens are a playoff team. The Jaguars are a playoff team. The Dolphins are a playoff team. That's 5 right there. And then you look at the next grouping, Bills, Steelers, Browns, Texans, and then the Chargers. So if I'm accurate in terms of the Chiefs, Bengals, Ravens, Jaguars, Dolphins making the playoffs, you got 2 spots. Just answer this question for me. If I give you the teams, Bills, Steelers, Browns, Texans, Chargers, you pick 2. Does the immediate reaction suggest that you're picking the Chargers? Mine wouldn't. Even though I'll hold my nose with the way the Bills are playing right now, the Bills will be in there. And I'll trust the defenses of the Steelers and the Browns more than I would than the Chargers. And the Steelers and Browns have great defenses. Offensively, we don't know what we're going to expect. But for the Chargers, this quote-unquote great offense, I know the Jets are a really good defense, basically did nothing in the game last night. And I just think there's something missing with the Chargers. Where, yes, you could argue, well, Zach, there's something missing with the Steelers and the Browns, and it's an offense. But you know their defense is good enough where they're going to be a tough team where they could carry you to the playoffs. But when I see the Chargers, they have all the looks of a playoff team. But when you watch them, you go, this team should just be so much better. And the Chargers be making an enormous mistake with 1 year remaining on that contract. Even if, and I'll be positive here for a second. I'll even present this scenario where I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But let's just say they do make the playoffs. If you don't win a playoff game, and even if you do win a playoff game, and we've seen coaches get fired before after winning a playoff game, right? Remember Malarkey with Tennessee, he got fired after winning a playoff game in Kansas City. Next week loses, and they end up bringing in Mike Vrabel. So I just can't present a scenario right now that's realistic where I entertain bringing back Brandon Staley. And I really do believe the thing that's missing with this team is a belief in their coach. Because some of these players, and a few of them have got honest the last few weeks, or have dropped hints where there's a lack of confidence with their head coach, but you don't need them to say it. Like, we're not dummies. You know that Brandon Staley isn't that dude. And when I look at that roster and I see the way that that team's assembled, and I see where this team is playing on the field and how it's not close to the level that they should be at, even in a win, that just suggests to me and provides more evidence of this feeling that Brandon Staley should not be the coach of this team. Now, on the flip side, let's get to the Jets. I look at the Jets offense. We know they have a really good defense, but a really good defense is only going to take you so far when your offense is literally maybe the worst offense I've ever seen, or one of the worst offenses I've ever seen. The Jets offense is offensive. But when you look at the offense for the Jets, their offensive line stinks. They got spun around last night like a turnstile in Penn Station. The quarterback is inept, and I don't want to pile on anymore with the quarterback because he stinks and everybody knows it. Receivers and tight ends dropping balls last night, even when they were placed perfectly. And Nathaniel Hackett continues to display recently that without Aaron Rodgers, this guy just doesn't have a damn clue. With all that being said, though, the guy that I blame the most this year for the Jets' offensive problems is the general manager, Joe Douglas. Because Joe Douglas did not do something at the deadline and did not go out there and grab a quarterback. Josh Dobbs got traded. Jacoby Brissett's not starting games right now for the Commanders. Jameis Winston's not starting games right now for the New Orleans Saints. Why didn't you give up a fourth, the fifth, the sixth, a seventh, whatever it would take to go get one of those three guys? Because even though none of those three guys are great, they are 10 times better than Zach Wilson. Because it's two things with Zach Wilson. One, the line stinks and he gets sacked. Or two, even when the line holds up, his vision and awareness is so bad, and it's almost as if he's afraid that he just falls right into the defensive lineman. And Zach Wilson, for the second year in a row, is going to derail the Jets season. Because, yes, unfortunate Rodgers goes down. I know Rodgers after the game is talking to Derwin James and saying, oh, I'll be back in a few weeks. It's crazy how far he's walking without the crutches and all that, but I'll believe that when I see it. I know he was before the game launching footballs on the field. But I don't think it's worth it to play Rodgers this year because the Jets, when he's eligible to maybe return in a few weeks, they're going to have a few more losses on their resume. And behind this offensive line, do you want to risk next season putting Aaron Rodgers out there where even if he's cleared to play, you know he's not going to be 100% with how quickly he is removed from this Achilles injury? So the Jets at the deadline, they had multiple times. They didn't just double down on Zach Wilson. They tripled and quadrupled down on him. They had him on the roster before the start of the season. You could have improved in the offseason, the backup quarterback position, when you got Aaron Rodgers. Then when Rodgers goes down 4 plays into the season, you don't bring anybody in. And then at the deadline, you had an opportunity. Vikings went out there. They traded for Josh Dobbs. Brissett available. Winston available. And Joe Douglas did nothing. And that's inconceivable to me. Why, with a defense that's good enough to make the playoffs, why you wouldn't at least give them a chance to try to build some more confidence next year when Rodgers returns and everyone is going to have serious sky-high expectations for this team. Because if you watch football and you take your bias out of it, I think we could all admit if Rodgers is on the field for the Jets this year, they're one of the better teams in the NFL. And I say that as a Patriot fan. Because that's how good that Jets defense is. And Garrett Wilson would have 1,700 yards receiving this year if Rodgers was his quarterback. And Breece Hall, who's really good, he would benefit it from as well. But it's a joke that the Jets didn't address the quarterback position at the trade deadline. And that's on Joe Douglas. Because look at all the crappy quarterbacks around the league. Josh Dobbs just got to win. Aiden O'Connell just got to win. Heck, Tyson Bagent threw a few touchdown passes last week. There are a lot of guys out there that you're like, huh? Who? This guy's in the league? And those guys are having some success. And I'm not telling you if they made a move for a quarterback, they would be this dominant team, but they would have a chance. And everybody knows it that was in that stadium last night. Even if you didn't say it out loud, as long as that kid, Zach Wilson, is the quarterback, you have zero chance to contend for the playoffs this year. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll take a break. When we come on back, we'll go to college football, and we'll get into all the details with the latest surrounding the Michigan Wolverines. Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio.
Maybe the team I've been most impressed with this year in the NFL. It's the Baltimore Ravens. Going into the year, I thought the Ravens' apex would just be making the playoffs. But in 2 of the last 3 weeks, we've seen the Ravens go up against a very good Lions team and a very good Seahawks team. And neither of those games were close. And you have Lamar, who is dominant. They plug and play whoever they want at the running back position. That Ravens team is definitely a Super Bowl contender.
This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, let's get to the latest with the Michigan Wolverines scandal. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. So Brett McMurphy had this yesterday. Michigan has received notice from the Big Ten indicating specific sign-stealing allegations, but it does not indicate what penalties would be administered. sources told Action Network HQ that has until Wednesday to respond to the Big Ten. Source said the Big Ten's pursuit of penalties against Michigan and or Jim Harbaugh is viewed as a PR stunt in response to public pressure and in light of the conference's lack of action up to this point. A source said will legally fight any disciplinary action, which potentially would block any suspension from occurring this season, a source said. So in terms of football, this is what I care about this season. How does it impact the Michigan Wolverines? Everyone could have their opinion, and I don't think people are willing to meet in the middle. It's either you're extreme one way, where you believe Michigan should be punished and punished to the extreme, or it's you think that Michigan has done nothing wrong. As I have said for a while now, Michigan did something wrong, but do I believe it's the end of the world and you need to drop the hammer on Michigan? Absolutely not. And anyone indicating or suggesting that Michigan should not be allowed to play in the college football playoff this year, or they shouldn't be allowed in the Big Ten championship game, that is absolutely ridiculous. Because the NCAA and the Big Ten, it would be unprecedented. Wherever it comes from, and in this case, it looks like it would be from the Big Ten. These investigations take forever. And a lot of times we joke, why don't they expedite the process? It's pretty obvious what happened here. But with how long these investigations usually take, to be able to quickly investigate and then say to Michigan, all right, we're going to suspend your coach, Jim Harbaugh, and we maybe make you ineligible for the Big Ten championship, that would just be extreme, it would be harsh, and it would be done way too soon. I'm not denying that there needs to be some punishment for Michigan. Michigan did something wrong. But it's not to an infraction where I think you need to throw the book at them. Now, here's what I do believe will happen, and it's similar to what Brett McMurphy just said. I do believe Tony Petitti, who's the new Big Ten commissioner, will try to make a statement, will try to show who's boss, will try to basically appease the other conference members, and they will dress this up as if they're doing something, but it will be punted down the road. Because we all know what's going to happen. At some point this week or next week, Petitti's office will come out with the statement, we're appalled what Michigan is accused of, blah, blah, blah. We found X, Y, and Z, and we're going to suspend Jim Harbaugh for X amount of games. I do not believe that the Big Ten will take Michigan out of being eligible for the Big Ten championship game. Because that would hurt the conference, because the conference knows down deep that their best chance to get into the college football playoff this year and to win the college football playoff is with Michigan. Michigan and Ohio State are the two best teams of the Big Ten. Michigan's better than Ohio State, and they'll show you that coming up on Thanksgiving weekend. But I don't believe the commissioner, even though he's trying to appease and dress up that he's being serious here to the other Big Ten to the Big Ten teams, will drop the hammer of they're ineligible for the Big Ten championship game. So probably will be a suspension of Harbaugh, and then Harbaugh will appeal or Harbaugh will go get an injunction. And most likely this gets punted once he gets that stay and is granted that stay until next year with the litigious situation. And probably Harbaugh will go back to the NFL. That's what I think is going to happen. But the other information that is derived here is there was a long Associated Press report yesterday, and I'll read you a little bit of it right now. A former employee at a Big Ten football program said Monday it was his job to steal signs, and he was given details from multiple conference schools before his team played Michigan to compile a spreadsheet of play calling signals used by the Wolverines last year. The employee said he shared with Michigan the documents which showed the Wolverine signs and corresponding plays after his school faced the Jim Harbaugh-led program in 2022. The person also passed along screenshots of text message exchange with staffers from a handful of Big Ten football teams with Michigan, giving the program proof that other conference teams were colluding to steal signs from the Wolverines. He said he gave the additional details to Michigan last week because he hoped it would help Harbaugh's embattled program, adding he believed the head coach and his assistants are being unfairly blamed for the actions of a rogue staffer. Two things here. Let's start with that last sentence. If you just believe that Connor Stalions is operating on his own the entire time, yeah, I have a bridge to sell for you too. So let's pipe down on the rogue staffer stuff. But the other part here, that other Big Ten schools were colluding together to get the Michigan signs and to send them to other Michigan opponents, that is fascinating. Because behind the scenes, you have those same Big Ten schools bitching and complaining to Tony Petitti, saying, we need action done right now. And here you are having Michigan signs. Now, we all know sign stealing isn't illegal. It's part of the game. It's gamesmanship. It's how you get those signs. So I think the fair question here is, did any of those schools that got Michigan signs, did they do so illegally, whether it was scouting Michigan games and going to their stadium like Connor Stalions did and recording it with devices? And to that, I don't have the answer. All I could share, though, and how about this juicy report coming from John U. Bacon, who wrote a book about Michigan and wrote a book about Harbaugh and had exclusive access. So you got to take it with a grain of salt, but John is as plugged in as anybody. He just tweeted out a few moments ago, Big Ten's Tony Petitti was informed today that the two programs which fed Purdue Michigan signals before the 2022 Big Ten title game were, you want to take a guess here, guys? Who do you think the two programs were? One is obvious, the other is not.
Let's go Rutgers and Minnesota.
Ooh, you're right on Rutgers.
Wow, I was just joking about that.
Yeah, I know you had that with the smirk.
Likely teams I could think of.
Rutgers was one of the team. The other one's a layup, guys.
Ohio State.
Yep.
And Ryan Day.
According to John U. Bacon, prior to the 2022 Big Ten title game, Rutgers and Ohio State were feeding Purdue signals before the game. And he does add in this, and this is important, not clear if rules were broken, doesn't directly affect UM's situation, but raises questions regarding relative competitive advantage. And that's what a big stance has been from many people throughout this. Like, you hear Coach Prime speak about this. Everyone does this. Like, everyone has signs. Sign stealing is a part of the game. You still got to stop it. But now the question becomes, how did they obtain those signs? Because if Ohio State and Rutgers were dumb enough to do what Michigan did, because, right, Sam, don't you think it's fair that Ohio State, Rutgers, they got wind of this? You saw the Schiano clip at halftime of the Michigan game. You know Ohio State had some involvement of this into some capacity. We'll get into that story in just a bit. But if they got wind that Michigan was doing this, and then their response was, let's go collude together, and, right, Schiano used to work for Ohio State too, so there's a connection there. Let's collude together to get Michigan signs. How dumb would Ohio State and Rutgers be if, and we don't know if they are, and I have no evidence that they are, that they were maybe illegally recording those signs as well? It would be, man, we created a big stink, but we were doing the same thing, and it wouldn't be the complete like craziest thing in college football, because how many times do these stupid programs think they could sweep everything under the rug and the truth would never come out about them?
And the reality is, if Michigan, like, listen, we've discussed this.
Yeah.
The way they went about doing it is the bigger issue.
That's the infraction.
But when all of the other Big Ten schools are colluding against Michigan, whether they're doing it legally or not, they're sharing spreadsheets and text messages and talking to Purdue in the Big Ten championship game, going out of the conference and telling TCU what Michigan is doing in the college football playoff.
Well, for Ohio State, there may be an advantage there. Because if you tell TCU what Michigan's doing, remember Ohio State was in the playoff last year against Georgia, almost beat them. Ohio State, they would not want to play Michigan with what has happened the last 2 years in that national championship game. So there was incentive there for Ryan Day and Ohio State if these reports are true.
So for me, while I see Michigan is doing something wrong, going past a gray area, what I see these other Big Ten schools doing is almost as bad, if not worse. Colluding against one, teaming up, 11 against 1, 12
and you've been
against
very
1.
Anti-Michigan, to be clear, from this whole start.
Say it again?
You've been very anti-Michigan.
I love Harbaugh, not anti-Michigan. I think that this has been not blown up out of proportion. I feel like this has been a big deal.
What I mean by that is, I'm not saying you have a hatred for Michigan and you're standing here saying, screw Michigan, bleep blue, all that stuff. You have just, in terms of what you think is right here, have been critical of Michigan and thinking there should be a big penalty.
100%. And I'm just as critical of all the other Big Ten schools. The difference is, if Harbaugh is doing this, yes, he's gaining a competitive advantage, and yes, he's doing something kind of untoward in order to get this advantage. But if Ohio State is legitimately being the narc, if they're being the tattletale, if they're going out there and telling Purdue and all the other schools and hiring investigators, and Ryan Day is telling TCU because they're afraid of big bad Michigan in the college football playoff, or if they just want to hurt their rival, the amount of respect that I have lost for Ryan Day and the Ohio State program, and for the most part, the remainder of all those Big Ten schools, cannot be counted. I think that Jim Harbaugh cheated. I still have respect for Jim Harbaugh. I still like Jim Harbaugh. I still respect that program, even though they probably cheated. I have no respect for Ryan Day, Ohio State, and some of those other Big Ten schools if all of these reports and all of these details are true. No respect for a guy who has to demean his opponent in order to try to make himself look better, who has to bring down his rival in order to make himself feel maybe a little bit more secure. He's pathetic. He's a loser. He's scared of Michigan. Ryan Day is the biggest loser in the Big Ten. If any of this stuff is true, if Ryan Day was behind this, he is a loser, he is pathetic, and he is scared. And I will never respect him or Ohio State again until they prove that they can do something against Michigan, against Jim Harbaugh, or against anybody else without being these whiny little know-it-alls.
Oh, I thought Santa was about to curse right there.
I was about to. I had to stop myself. I am furious. I am like, All
I will say is welcome. Welcome, Santa. Welcome to the Gelb side here. And this is why Tony Petitti would be the biggest moron in America and just would not get what we want to see as college football fans. The allegations are the allegations. We know everyone does sign stealing. It's about how you obtain the signs. I understand the crux of the issue here. But Tony Petitti, don't try to suck up to the other Big Ten schools. You do nothing here. And you make sure everyone's at even strength this weekend for Penn State and Michigan. And then more importantly, in a few weekends, Thanksgiving weekend, Ohio State and Michigan. Because everyone knows now that everyone's watching and everything's under investigation and all the signs have already changed. And you put that football down on the field, you make sure that Jim Harbaugh's on the sideline, and we get our answer of who the better team is. So Tony Petitti, don't be a loser. That's what I would say to you. Don't be a kiss ass to the other schools. Put the damn ball on the field and let's see who wins. And I'll tell you this, Michigan's better in the trenches on both sides against Penn State and also up against Ohio State. And little Ryan Day, who I used to like because he's a Temple man. He had 2 different stops at my fine alma mater, my fine university. We all know he's tossing and turning in the middle of the night. Ooh, it's the Michigan boogeyman. Ooh, Jim Harbaugh. Because Ryan Day has to drive him crazy that this guy only has 6 losses in his career, and there's Ohio State fans that want him fired because he has done something that Urban Meyer never did, and that was lose to Michigan. And not only lose to Michigan twice. Now, one more quick thing here. This was this other report that came out. We know Michigan is currently in possession of documents that could link one of the alleged investigators to Day's younger brother, Timothy Day. That was reported by Chris Ballas. The other, they say, suspect is linked to Day's brother, Christopher, and was also a classmate of Tim Day's in New Hampshire. One currently runs a private investigation firm in Manchester, New Hampshire, Day's hometown. So, I don't care how the NCAA is leaking information or how they're getting information. If it comes from Ryan Day's brother, Samter, though, or people close to Day's family, it's just further of, he's ratting everybody out, and no one really wants to be a rat. Now, you have information that puts someone away or does something like that. I get it. It's better to speak up at times, but let's be real. In this grand scheme of thing, this is not life or death. I know the NCAA has denied it. I know that Ryan Day will play you this right now. He was asked about it. Here's what he had to say over the weekend.
Your reaction to the reports that are out that maybe Ohio State, and you in particular, or maybe someone close to you, turned Michigan in?
Yeah, no comments right now.
No comments right now. It's a very simple yes or no. Did you know? Did you have a link? And let's just say, even though there's sometimes you have to say no comment, if I know down deep I had no involvement, I would simply say, I can't really comment on this. All I'm going to say is I had no involvement of this. The report's erroneous. But Ryan Day couldn't even say that, Samter.
And he also said no comment right now, which means that he knows that the firestorm is coming. The bleep storm is coming his way.
The truth will set us free. It will come out.
He has no comment right now, but he will have comment once all the paper trail leads right back to his doorstep.
No comments right now.
I am so happy that I found a way to secure 2 tickets for Ohio State, Michigan. I am going to enjoy that game, put the football on the field, and quite frankly, I hope Michigan crushes Ohio State by 20 points. I hope they blow them out. Ryan Day. Crying Ryan. That's what we're going to start calling him. Loser. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. We'll come on back with a news brief. Update time first. Here he is, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Progressive makes bundling easy and affordable. Get a multi-policy discount by combining your motorcycle, RV, boat, ATV, and more. All your protection in one place. Bundle and save at Progressive.com. It is now Will Levis's team in Nashville, with Mike Vrabel saying the rookie will start at quarterback once again this week, with Ryan Tannehill, now healthy, serving as the backup. The Rams opted for Jared Goff over Carson Wentz back in 2016. 8 years later, Wentz reportedly signing with the Rams. The Browns have placed tackle Jedrick Wills on injured reserve with a knee injury. They'll go into this weekend down both starting tackles from week 1. And an average of 9.6 million viewers tuned into Sunday's matchup with the Dolphins and Chiefs, making the largest audience ever for an NFL Network international showcase. The NBA has the night off tonight for Election Day. The college season opened yesterday, and today Rick Pitino begins another new chapter in his Hall of Fame career when he takes over St. John's, who will host Stony Brook. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio is everywhere, Perloff, at home, in your car, and, of course, on your phone and tablet.
Maggie, you can find us on your local affiliate, Sirius XM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining.
4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
Jon Rothstein's going to join us coming up at 4:20 p.m. Eastern. James Bradberry from the 8-1 Philadelphia Eagles at 5:20 p.m. Eastern. Of course, this is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio, 855-212-4CBS, 855-212-4227. Let's go to Nate in Pennsylvania. He's next up on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. Nate, good afternoon. What's happening?
Hey, good afternoon, Zach. So I'm sorry, I called that. You're a Michigan alumni, right?
No, I graduated from Temple University. Never attended Michigan.
Okay, well, all right. Well, I'm a Penn State guy, so like I feel like I'm a little bipartisan in this whole thing. It seems like now it's kind of now it's like a Ohio State, Michigan type of story. Also, I want to just let you know, I'm going to call back here in like March when the NFL season's over, and I'm going to give you my take on how to save the NBA regular season. But so right at this point right now, I really didn't have like a dog in the fight. Now they're forcing me to root for Ohio State here, which I hate to do against Michigan, because you know why?
Because you can't beat them. You know that.
I hate them because you can't beat them, yeah, but I'm forced to root for them now because they're losers. Do you know why they are? They're losers. Because when the story first broke, the first thing they wanted to tell you was everybody did it. Everybody's doing it. So what's the big deal? Everybody's doing it. Well, not everybody's doing it because, and not everybody's doing it to the extent you guys are. And not, I don't think all the facts have come out yet. Who knows how far down the rabbit hole this really goes.
Okay, so that's even more why they should do nothing right now, the Big Ten. How they should let this season play out and then do something after the season. I'm not saying Michigan did nothing wrong. I think Michigan deserves to be punished, but to do something now in season would be a flat-out disgrace.
Well, I mean, it depends. See, I don't know if the NCAA or the Big Ten commissioner has leveled everything, all the facts have been out there. And also, you keep in mind, I don't know if he's on probation now, but he was already suspended 3 games this year. And I agree with you.
Yeah, for like a recruiting violation over a cheeseburger.
That everybody does. That I'm not. But it's still, it's you have a bad track record. The second thing I hate when they say is that it doesn't affect the game that much. It's not like it gives us that big of a competitive advantage. Then why are you doing it? If it doesn't help you, then why are you doing it? That's just a lie. And now today, to want to wag their finger in the face of Ryan O'Day, if he is in fact the one that gave the NCAA this information, what are you talking about? He's a rival. Who do you think is going to do it? Your best friend?
Wait, but Nate, let me ask you this. If this report is true that just came out, that to get back at Michigan or whatever it was, that Rutgers and Ohio State were colluding to give Purdue the signs before the Big Ten championship game, shouldn't then they be punished as well?
Absolutely. Listen, if you don't like the rule, then change the rule. But if you are, listen, even if Ohio State is actively out there stealing signs.
Well, it's all about how they obtained them. You're allowed to steal signs, as you know. It's just, did you use a recording device?
A recording device and show up to their games. There's like a fine line there. But obviously there's something to gain from it, and that's why they're doing it. And even if Ohio State was actively doing something against the rules and at the same time was feeding the NCAA or the Big Ten commissioner evidence that Michigan was breaking the same rule, that's showbiz, baby. What else do you expect them to do? They're working at every angle they can. They're recording games. They're feeding information. They're talking to recruits. They're stealing recruits. They're doing everything they can to give themselves a competitive advantage. If Jim Harbaugh isn't on the sideline, you don't think that helps Ohio State? And so to sit back after you guys are the ones on the hot seat, not you, but Michigan as a whole, and try to fight your way out of this corner about, oh, it's not a big deal or shame on you guys for giving it. That's loser talk. You guys broke the rule. You got caught. It's not that you broke the rule, because I do admit most teams are, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. But to kind of make it seem like it's not a big, take your medicine, move on, and stop acting like a big.
Well, Nate, let me just ask you this, because I'm very curious, because I heard you call people losers, and I say this with prefacing that I love your athletic director, Impact Craft at Penn State, but James Franklin has unfortunately turned Penn State into Participation State University because they have a lot of empty wins and they can't win the big games. He's 3-16 up against top 10 opponents in his 10 years at Happy Valley. Just wondering, what's your prediction this weekend in Happy Valley? One of the great environments ever. It's a noon game. It should be a whiteout game at night, but Fox took that over and ruined that. What do you think the final score is going to be between Michigan and Penn State?
I will give you this. Michigan is the better team on paper, but the game against Indiana 2 weeks ago, Drew Aller threw his first pick, and then he came back and threw one of the best passes he made all year to win the game when the pressure was on him, where they couldn't lose that game, or else there might be some actual talk about head coaching change. And he won in the game. Last week he went out against Maryland and put on, for his skill set, for being his first year starting, he put on somewhat of a clinic. And I always compare it back to McSwirly. He had a game, I can't tell you who it was during the regular season, when they had already lost to Pittsburgh, got blown out by Michigan, and they came back and won the Big Ten. And he had a game similar to what Aller had against Indiana, where they were against the ropes, and he came out swinging.
Nate, this is a lot of dancing. Give me the answer here. Who wins the game?
Who wins the game? Penn State wins the game.
Of
Who else do you
course,
think is
because you're
gonna
a
say
cult
Penn State?
member. That's what you are, Nate. You're a cult member. Oh, I have so many friends that attended Penn State. They sound just like Nate. And they're talking about positives from Indiana. Rod Carey's one of the worst football coaches ever. You almost lost to him. He's the offensive coordinator for Indiana. Oh, give me a break. And that's why they're Participation State University. They have to hype up their performance up against Maryland. You're Penn State. You should crush Maryland. Oh, my goodness gracious. It's the same thing with every Penn State fan. They talk in circles. Oh, throw the book at Michigan. Oh, Michigan this, Michigan that. And they talk themselves up. As to Ryan Hickey, who I used to work with, he used to say, oh, they're going to the playoff this year. And up against Ohio State, what did they do this year? Jack. Their defense played great, but their offense was horrible. So now up against a better team in Michigan, I get it, you're home. Maybe you could put up a good effort for the first half, and then Participation State University coach James Franklin afterward is going to say, oh, wow, we competed with another top 5 team in the country, but you lost. You don't actually think, Nate, that Penn State's winning the game? You don't. Because you basically threw up on yourself and stuttered and stammered for the first 2 minutes in answering the question on who's going to win the game. Telling me about a performance up against Indiana where they were lucky to win and where they blew out Maryland. It's very simple. Michigan's the better team. Now, the better team doesn't always win, but how, if you're a Penn State fan, unless you are a cult member, can you go back to the well of believing in James Franklin? The guy is an overrated coach. He's the definition of good, not great. And they have all these empty wins at Penn State. 3-16. I'll say it again to get it through Penn State fan stick skulls. 3-16 against the top 10 during his tenure in Happy Valley. And you're lucky this game ain't on the road because he's never won a road game against a top 10 team during his tenure as the Penn State head coach. Oh, come on. Every Penn State fan has the same playbook. And it's a shame because that's a proud fan base. That's a program that should be a great program. But they're just a good program. And this is Penn State's national championship game. Because even though they only have one loss, and I guess they could still make the Big Ten championship game, they're going to hype this up as the biggest thing ever. But down deep, all you sycophants in Happy Valley know, Jim Harbaugh's coming. Blake Corum's coming. J.J. McCarthy's coming. Donovan Edwards is coming. Colston Loveland. And they're going to haunt you in your dreams forever.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
How we doing? Hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show on this Tuesday on CBS Sports Radio. You could always give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram and interact with the show at Zach Gelb, ZACHGELB. And by the way, the Defensive Player of the Week is sponsored by the Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the Armed Forces, DoD veterans, and their families. Their members are the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. How about this week's player, who is Colts defensive back Kenny Moore II, in Sunday's 27-13 win over the Panthers? Moore had 8 tackles and 2 interceptions, both of which he returned for touchdowns. One was for 49 yards, and the other was for 66 yards. Jon Rothstein going to join us coming up. We'll talk a little college basketball with him at 4:20 p.m. Eastern, 20 minutes from now. It was just announced that Bill Self has received a lifetime contract at Kansas. Now, I've always wondered this, Samter and Mike. Samter and Stu. I always call Samter like 3,000 different nicknames now, so I'm just going to mess up the names when I just go to you guys out of nowhere. But what does like a lifetime contract mean in terms of what happens if there's a day where Kansas says Bill Self is no longer the best person for the job? I wonder what the legal lingo is to try to get out of a lifetime contract because, as I said to end last segment, Samter, a lifetime contract suggests that you are tied to that coach forever. So as long as Bill Self wants to coach at Kansas.
I have no idea what it means. I hope that it means that he'll have 9 more scandals and they won't do anything about it. And lifetime contract means that he'll be 116 years old, coaching Kansas, sitting in a wheelchair on the sideline, a la, Sister Jean or something. I don't know what the hell that means.
Sister Jean reference. Wow.
I don't know what the hell a lifetime contract means for a coach. I've seen it for like shoe companies. Right, like LeBron
I've seen it
has
for
a
coaches
lifetime.
Before too. I'm pretty sure Calipari has a lifetime
Yeah,
deal
Calipari has
at
one.
Kentucky.
Yeah, 2019 he signed it.
And people said he was on the hot seat. How could you be in the hot seat if you have a lifetime contract?
It makes no sense to me.
By the
Nothing
way,
makes sense.
do you know how old Sister Jean is? By the way, take a guess.
103.
Pretty close. Stu, you want to take a guess here?
I'm gonna say 101.
She is 104.
Oh,
August 21st, 1919. Was when she was born.
1919. Holy cow.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's crazy. She's 100. She just turned 104 in August. That's crazy. I was not expecting a Sister Jean reference. So when you said that, I'm like, how old is Sister Jean actually? So hope the sister's doing well. That's all I'll say on that one. So Jon Rothstein is coming up in about 20 minutes, and then James Bradberry in an hour 20 from the 8-1 Philadelphia Eagles. But let's not wait any further. Let's update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We get to a news brief.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Let's go to Robert Saleh, the coach of the JETS Jets, on his offense, if you even want to call that an offense, versus the Los Angeles Chargers.
Today was not good, obviously. And like I said, we just never gave ourselves a chance. A lot of self-inflicted wounds. Moving the ball early, felt like we had a good little change-up, kind of going tempo, and thought that was having positive results. But like I said, you get 2 turnovers in the first quarter. When you move the ball to their territory, it's never a good thing.
He wanted to say, the offense sucks. I have zero confidence in the offense. We need Aaron Rodgers back, and we'll probably see where we are next year. I know Rodgers, after the game last night, told Derwin James that he'll be back in a few weeks, but I still don't believe that. But you look at the Jets, their defense is really damn good. Offensively, though, their line is horrible. Zach Wilson stinks, and Nathaniel Hackett without Aaron Rodgers is nothing. So you go around, what else is Saleh supposed to say? Where I'm sure fans want him to light into and tear into his offense. But then if you have offensive players tune you out, and this offense is already this bad, can it actually get worse if people aren't all on the same page? Because that's tough, because Saleh's a defensive-minded guy, even though he is the head coach. So you got to cater to both sides, all 3 sides of the football. But that defense has to hate the offense right now, because they know with this offense, this team will do absolutely nothing this year. Going to the Jets' best offensive player, Garrett Wilson. Here's him talking about the offensive struggles.
It's inexcusable, man, and it's getting to the point where it's disappointing. I hate coming off the field, looking our defense in the eyes, and knowing that we got to send them back out there after 3 and out. Them boys are my dogs. And they come out and ball. They put us in a great position. It's time for us to start returning the favor, man. And it's time. We got to figure it out.
That's good on Garrett Wilson, because Robert Saleh is going to get just destroyed for the way that he talked about the offense after the game last night. And it's a tough spot because you're managing the entire team and you're not managing to appease, us in the media or your fan base as well. But for Garrett Wilson to basically say it's go time, we got to change things offensively, and it's disappointing, I respect that, because a lot of times players don't take accountability. He's one of the best players on the Jets, so he takes accountability, even though he knows down deep it doesn't matter what he says or what he does this year, because as long as Zach Wilson is the quarterback and that offensive line remains the same, it doesn't matter who you have at running back, because they have a good running back in Breece Hall. It doesn't matter who you have at wide receiver, like a young stud in Garrett Wilson. You can't do anything with the way that this quarterback and this offensive line is looking like these days.
I will say, though, Zach Wilson was terrible, but but there were times when he was moving the ball. Second drive of the game, Garrett Wilson, fumble. Third drive of the game, fumble. Like, they were moving the ball. They were getting the ball downfield. He was making good throws. And then penalty and turnovers and bad decisions. And there were a couple plays where I love Garrett Wilson as a former Jet fan. But as a fan of football, I appreciate Garrett Wilson. He didn't look great yesterday. There were a few balls that went his way that he should have caught that he dropped.
Okay.
A few shots down the sideline.
Fair point.
He ran a bad route or just didn't catch a ball that he should have caught. If he wants to be an elite receiver, I know that it's not always fair to put it on his shoulders.
But let's look
he's
at
got
this
to
from a
do more.
human standpoint. This is a kid that's in his second year in the league. He had a great season last year with a quarterback who's incompetent. And I'm not saying he's going to be perfect, but think about this mentally. He goes from everyone saying he's going to have 16, 17, 1,800 yards with the great Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is comparing him to 17, the other 17 he played with, in Devontae Adams. And 4 plays into the season, it's up. Here's the Zach Wilson fella again. I can't expect the best version out of Garrett Wilson this year because it's probably not fair to assume someone's mental state, but mentally that has to be very tough on a person when you were basically going to a 5-star restaurant and then you get kicked out 4 seconds into the meal and they go, okay, go back to the 2-star restaurant, and you know what they're serving at the 5-star restaurant. So that's the tough part, and that's why I just don't think anyone on the Jets right now on the offense side of the ball is capable of having a great season because everyone has to deal with the thought of, wow, what could have been if we had Aaron Rodgers. Here is Chase Young. He got traded to the 49ers on what stands out with the 49ers after spending his first few years of his career with the Washington Commanders.
Culture. I see why they win. Just the details of each play, the details of my assignment, much more greater. So I see why they win.
Oh, it's not breaking news. It's not, earth-shattering news. You went to an organization that had the worst culture maybe ever, with Daniel Snyder being the owner. And I know they just got Josh Harrison. There's optimism, but they already declined your 5th-year option before the start of the season. I'm sure Chase Young had 1 foot in, 1 foot out with all the injuries that he suffered too. He probably just wanted a fresh start. And you go from a team that's been viewed as the outhouse to now a team that's been in the penthouse in the NFL circle for the last few years. Here is Jamar Chase on what he's doing to get back healthy for the Cincinnati Bengals.
No, all I could do is pray. You know what I'm saying? And like I keep saying, be a good teammate and be there for those guys and try to get healthy. That's the only thing I can do right now. And you know what I'm saying? Everybody count on me to be healthy.
That's the scary part, too, about the Bengals. They're just hitting their stride. Like, they stumbled out of the gate. Joe Burrow was dealing with an injury. We've seen what they did the last 2 weeks, taking care of the 49ers, easy peasy, taking care of the Buffalo Bills, pretty easy peasy as well. And they're not even at a full go. And Jamar Chase kind of said this before the start of the season. Joe Burrow just has to be healthy by the postseason. Same goes for Jamar Chase as well. So I would be careful here because I do believe the Bengals are going to the playoffs. I do believe the Bengals are going to the Super Bowl this year. You just got to make sure that your top guys are healthy, and that's something that sometimes you just can't control. Here is Sam Howell on his future as Commanders quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to be the quarterback here for a really long time. But, at the end of the day, how I'm going to get to that point is, taking it one day at a time and doing everything that I can on a day-to-day basis. And then, that's what I'll continue to try to do.
So Sam Howell's been fine this year. He's been good. He's solid. I'm intrigued to see what he does the rest of the way. And I think he should be the team starter next year. It'd be one thing if they were picking in the top 10 or the top 5 and they had a chance to maybe go get a Caleb Williams or a Drake May or a Michael Penix Jr., but there's a lot of holes on that team. And right now they're 4-5. They could move up that draft board. Right now, if the season ended today, they would be the 12th overall pick. But I think they'll win enough games where they're going to use that first-round draft pick to go elsewhere, and they'll look to complete the rest of the roster or fill up the rest of the roster. And then next year is really the make-or-break year for Sam Howell. This is Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee Show with Daniel Jones out for the year. Tommy DeVito is up for the Giants. Tyrod Taylor still hurt. Are the Giants looking for a quarterback?
I think this team right now goes right back into the quarterback market. On Saturday night, they had Joe Shane. They had 2 other front office individuals at the Michael Penix, Caleb Williams showdown. That was even before Daniel Jones got hurt. Like, the Giants had 3 reps at the game. Now, their season right now is worst case scenario, It's time to start looking ahead. The people in the building would never admit this or acknowledge this, but the best thing they could do is lose games right.
Yeah, and they're already scouting. Even before the injury, you had Joe Shane at that Washington-USC game where Caleb Williams is going up against Michael Penix Jr. The Giants did add a quarterback today. That was Jacob Eason, the former Washington and Georgia quarterback, who going into that 2020 draft, I remember talking to Jacob Eason. Some people were predicting him to go like second or third round. He ended up going in the fourth round by the Indianapolis Colts, and he's bounced around a bunch of teams, so I can't go all crazy about the Giants adding Jacob Eason. And I did see today, is there still a part of the poster around the studio, that Carson Wentz, he who shall not be named, Voldemort, did sign with the Los Angeles Rams. So Carson Wentz has finally found a new home. We'll see if he gets on the field. Last week, Matthew Stafford was not healthy enough to play. Some encouraging news I read in the last 24, 48 hours about Matthew Stafford, that it's not supposed to be long-term, and he's expected to be back sooner rather than later. But then the move today is signing Carson Wentz. So very confusing, to say the least, in terms of what's going to happen with the Rams quarterback situation. Let's go to Arthur Smith. Bijan Robinson has not been used accurately so far this season. Here's Arthur Smith on that usage.
He played a lot of snaps yesterday, Josh, and sometimes his impact away from the ball, can open things up. For any rookie, the seasons are long. You're going to have ebbs and flows. He still has a huge impact on the game. Over 700 yards, you're still looking for ways, and it's a long journey. So we'll see how this second half season goes, but he's been a huge part of our offense and he'll continue to be.
The thing I don't get here is I read a stat today that Bijan Robinson's only had one carry inside the 5-yard line. Arthur Smith has just been very disappointing this year because he thought that Desmond Ridder needed to be used as more than just a game manager, and you have this weapon in Bijan Robinson, and you're just not using him correctly. Here is Coach Prime Deion Sanders. He stopped by the Dan Patrick Show today and was asked about if there's any interest in coaching in the NFL. He's denied any interest in the past.
No, not whatsoever. I don't think I'm built for the NFL. I appreciate the game so much. When I see a guy getting paid millions and millions of dollars and he has no respect for the game, does not want to excel and exceed expectations of the game, I'm going to have a true problem.
What if it's a package deal with you and Shador?
Don't forget Charlotte. They're going to come out the same year, next year.
Okay.
I don't know. I haven't thought, man, I'm trying to win a game. I'm not thinking down the street that far. I haven't thought like that. That's a great thought process, though.
No chance that I'll ever be coaching the NFL. How about if you are a package deal with your sons? That's a little bit intriguing. And that's the only way that I think it would happen. But then you have to guarantee that you're going to be able to draft Shador Sanders and Shiloh Sanders. And I don't know how you make that guarantee, because what happens if some team swoops in front of you to go get them? I do believe Coach Prime, though, for the most part, saying that he doesn't have interest in the NFL. Here is LeBron James talking about his son, Bronny, who we all know had an unfortunate heart issue over the summer. USC did play last night. They won their first game of the season, taking care of Kansas State, 82-69. Here is LeBron James on the update of Bronny's health.
Things are going in the right direction with Bronny's progress. He's doing rehab every week. He gets to do more and more and more. We have a big moment at the end of this month to see if we can continue to go forward. If he's cleared, then we'll be not too long away from him being back on the floor and back with his teammates and practicing.
That's incredible, and nothing but the best to Bronny James, who unfortunately suffered cardiac arrest this summer. Finally, let's go to James Harden in his first game with the Clippers.
I feel kind of weird out there, but just not really having a preseason game or an opportunity to participate in the full training camp. None of that. It was just out there, just basically winging it.
No, the last few years you've basically been winging it. You go to the strip club, not always in the best shape. All you do is focus on going to the strip club, and the basketball focus isn't always there for one James Harden. So congratulations on getting back to the basketball court. And they did lose to the Knicks last night. And James Harden in that game had 17 points, 6 of 9 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. And I just don't think that team will be any good this year. I know we got to get to Jon Rothstein. Just real quickly, I want to add one more here for fun. Here's Nikola Jokic telling reporters not to ask questions. Listen up.
Actually, I can just talk because I know what you're going to ask. You ready, guys?
Yes, Julian was really good today. Yes, we feel really confident with Colin playing with us. Yes, third quarter was really amazing for us. We didn't have a focus in the first half. That's why we won the game, of course.
Yeah, when you're a two-time MVP, you're a world champion, a finals MVP, and the best player in the sport right now, and you're 7-1, you can conduct your own press conference. And I'm sure he hit it right on the head in terms of all the questions reporters would ask. All righty, we'll take a break here on the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. College basketball season is back, and Michigan State go down last night, a top 5 team in the country, to James Madison. We will tip off the college basketball season with one of the best insiders there is covering the sport, Jon Rothstein, when we return in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. 30 seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, we continue. This is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. I love FanDuel. You should love FanDuel. Jon Rothstein, of course, loves FanDuel. And Jon Rothstein joins us right now to tip off the college basketball season. He is college basketball's hungriest insider, joining us on the Zach Gelb Show, brought to you by FanDuel. Jon, appreciate the time. Thanks so much. How are you?
Great, Zach. Always good to be with you, buddy.
Well, thanks so much for coming on. So you never know what happens when the ball gets thrown up into the air to start off a new season. Just what an effort last night by James Madison, surprising everybody, taking down Michigan State, who's a top 5 team. What was your reaction to it?
College basketball is where the unexpected becomes the ordinary, and we saw that obviously again at the highest level. I think, though, when you really look at things from where teams were projected in the preseason, Michigan State was voted 4th in the Associated Press preseason top 25, a poll that I'm a member of. I voted the Spartans 4th as well. And then we saw a team, James Madison, who was picked to win the Sun Belt. So it wasn't like they were a non-factor as a mid-major in terms of their projections. And James Madison was still good enough to go to East Lansing and win the game. And I think this is the big thing that really makes college basketball so compelling, because one of the things that I think, we look at is the one thing that you always tend to lean to in this movement, obviously, with immediate eligibility for players and the lack of player retention now at an all-time high in college basketball, is you lean towards teams that bring everybody back of significance to have a leg up. Michigan State brings back everybody of significance from last year's team that went to the Sweet 16 except Joey Hauser, and the Spartans still were not able to beat a James Madison team that is picked to be one of the best in the Sun Belt. So this, to me, is what makes the sport so compelling. It goes back to what we talked about, Zach, in the spring with Fairleigh Dickinson.
Yeah.
Fairleigh Dickinson, remember, was not good enough under Tobin Anderson to earn an automatic qualifier out of the Northeast Conference. Merrimack was, but because of that transition rule, Merrimack was not eligible to play in the NCAA tournament. Merrimack then steps out of the way. Fairleigh Dickinson plays a very good game against Texas Southern in the first 4, and then goes and beats Purdue in the biggest upset in the history of the NCAA tournament. And look, I want to make this clear. Analytics are a great thing. They're a tremendous resource. I'm sure you use them for all sports that you cover because you do a general talk show. But Fairleigh Dickinson was, I believe, finally last season ranked when all the the KenPom analytics came out at 265, but they were still good enough one time to beat Purdue, who was dominant in the Big Ten, dominant obviously with the National Player of the Year, and dominant enough to win both the Big Ten regular season and tournament titles. And they were still, on one day, bad enough to fall victim to a team that completely earned a victory, but finished the season, according to the analytics website, KenPom.com, ranked at 265. Remember, Zach, it's not anarchy. It's just college basketball.
The great Jon Rothstein here with us while college basketball season is now officially back. You mentioned Purdue. The last time we saw a 16 seed go take down a 1 seed, it was Virginia and UMBC. We know Virginia did go on to win the national championship the following season. What do you think Purdue has the potential of doing this year?
They got the potential to do that, Zach. And I think the one thing you marvel at with Purdue, how about the way they hit the ground running against Samford last night? 29 assists on 34 made field goals. Nobody on Purdue took more than 9 shots. They've done a good job adding a little bit more balance on the perimeter with guys like Miles Coleman and Lance Jones and also Cameron Heide. But the bottom line is this. The story is not written yet for Purdue, and I talked about this with Matt Painter last week. The story can still be bookended with a Final Four appearance for the first time for the Boilers since 1980, but anything less than an appearance in the Final Four will not allow Purdue to truly exercise its demons. This is a fan base, remember, that in 2018 had a team good enough to go to the Final Four. What happens in the round of 32? Isaac Haas suffers an elbow injury. We all remember what happened in 2019 when Purdue in the Elite Eight had Virginia beat at the KFC Yum Center, but lost to the Cavs in overtime. 21, you lose to North Texas in the round of 64. 22, you lose to St. Peter's in the Sweet 16. 23, you are the recipient of the biggest upset in the history of the tournament. Purdue fans, their alumni, everybody associated with that program over the last half decade has been taken to the gates of hell. We'll see if they find heaven in 2024.
What a way to put it. Jon Rothstein here with us. Let's get to Duke. Last year, first year without Coach K as the head honcho. Jon Scheyer got better as the season did progress, just got rewarded with the 6-year extension, which is a wonderful world that we live in after 1 year. Duke right now is the second best team in the country in the AP poll. When you look at Duke, how confident are you, regardless of what the contract says, that Jon Scheyer is the right guy to replace Coach Mike Krzyzewski?
Well, he's shown it so far. I thought Jon Scheyer did an excellent job last year in his first year as head coach, and he's assembled in his second season the best roster in college basketball, and I don't think that's up for debate. But I also want to point this out. Just because you are recruiting a certain caliber of player does not mean that you're automatically going to have the team that's going to advance the furthest in the NCAA tournament. Let's look back at Duke last year. All the players that right now are in Durham that are back for another season: Tyrese Proctor, Jeremy Roach, Mark Mitchell, Ryan Young, Kyle Filipowski. They were on that team, plus Derek Lively, plus Dariq Whitehead. Who did Duke lose to in the NCAA tournament? Tennessee. Who did Tennessee not have in the NCAA tournament? Zakai Ziegler at starting point guard. And just because of the size, the physicality, the hard-nosed mentality of Rick Barnes, and really the collective will, Tennessee didn't just beat Duke in the NCAA tournament. They bullied Duke 65-52. It was not a single-digit loss for the Blue Devils.
When you get to the topic of replacing a legend, we just talked about Coach K getting replaced by Jon Scheyer. We've also seen the end of Jay Wright and Roy Williams as well. As you now get into year number 3 with Hubert Davis and then year number 2 for Kyle Neptune, how do you look at both the Tar Heels and Villanova?
You know, sometimes in college basketball, more so than any other sport, we sometimes let the performances in the NCAA tournament dictate what we're going to think about certain teams the following year. North Carolina a year ago returned 4 starters from a team that went to the national title game at a 15-point lead on Kansas at the half, but wound up losing in 2022. Why wouldn't we vote them number 1 in the country to start last season? They missed the NCAA tournament. This year, you have a scenario with Florida Atlantic where they nearly lost to Memphis in the NCAA tournament, beat the Tigers, then go through Fairleigh Dickinson, then go through Tennessee without its point guard, go to the Final Four, should have beaten San Diego State. I think because of all that returns, you have to rank those teams high in the preseason with the understanding that they were the byproduct of a great run, not necessarily a great season. For Hubert Davis in North Carolina, they have to have a season where they're entering the NCAA tournament as a threat to advance. I think that's within the reach of this team. RJ Davis and Armando Bacot are bona fide All-Americans. Elliot Cadeau, the talented freshman, is the best passing point guard that North Carolina has had since Kendall Marshall. And as far as Kyle Neptune goes, look, Jay Wright is probably as difficult a guy to follow as there is in sports, not just for what he did for Villanova basketball, but what he did for Villanova as a brand, as a university. Now, with that said, Kyle Neptune deserves the benefit of the doubt because, yes, he went 17-17 last season in his first year as Villanova's head coach, but Cam Whitmore did not start the season healthy. Villanova played 34 times last season. Justin Moore, an All-American candidate and a Big East Player of the Year candidate for the upcoming season, only played in 13 of those games. If Justin Moore is healthy for the full season, forget about Cam Whitmore, Villanova is comfortably in the NCAA tournament.
Jon Rothstein here with us on behalf of FanDuel. You had the story today that Kansas has amended the lifetime contract for Bill Self, making him the highest paid coach in college basketball. He's 60. You now have the amended lifetime contract. How much longer do you think he actually wants to coach for?
You know, we always wonder with these coaches, how long are they going to do it? But then we look at a scenario where you ask yourselves, well, these guys have been coaches for 40 years, and these guys are competitors because they were initially great players at the highest level of college sports or high school sports. What are they going to do if they're not coaching? Some transition to broadcasting, as Jay Wright obviously has done in the CBS family, as well as with Warner Brothers Discovery. But at the same time, you know, these guys are coaches. We saw Mike Krzyzewski coach well into his 70s. I've had a lot of conversations with Tom Izzo about this. I don't know what these guys would do if they weren't coaching. And one thing I've learned, even though I'm only 40, blank pages are never a good thing. Idle time is truly the devil's worship.
Let's get to Rick Pitino. A lot of excitement around the St. John's program with him becoming the head coach. However long this lasts, when it's all said and done for Pitino at St. John's, how do you think we're talking about what he accomplished with the Johnnies?
With tremendous success, with his presence elevating St. John's back to being a national brand. You know, people have to remember, St. John's has not won an NCAA tournament game since 2000. That is the longest active drought among teams that are currently in the Big East. Rick Pitino has won at Providence, took the Friars to the Final Four, won national championships at Kentucky and Louisville, respectively. But the big thing that people need to remember when it comes to Rick Pitino is this. He has not always needed the best talent to win at the highest level. And I tell people about this all the time because to me, this was the most underrated coaching job that he did in his career. And a lot of people forget about it because Louisville that year lost to Morehead State in the NCAA tournaments round of 64. Louisville that year, 2010-2011 season, remember, that was the year where the Big East got 11 of the 16 teams in the conference into the NCAA tournament, the same year that UConn won the national championship with Kemba Walker, was Jim Calhoun's third. Louisville that year started Peyton Siva as a sophomore, started Preston Knowles, who was a very good college player, Chris Smith, who transferred from Manhattan, Kyle Kuric as an undersized power forward, and Terrence Jennings at the 5. Louisville that year wins 25 games, gets a high seed in the NCAA tournament, was a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament, went to the Big East tournament title game, lost to UConn. But Rick Pitino in that Big East, where 11 of the 16 teams made the NCAA tournament, was still able to squeeze 25 wins out of that group. And Zach, that set the table for what happened the next 2 years, because in 2012, Louisville went to a Final Four, lost to Anthony Davis in Kentucky, and then in 2013, they won the whole thing with Siva and Russ Smith. But those players, Russ Smith, players like that, turned out to be fantastic players. But a big reason why was the player development that was instilled in them by Rick Pitino.
Jon Rothstein, by the way, what are your expectations for Kentucky this year?
I expect Kentucky to be built more in the fabric of a vintage John Calipari team. John Calipari has, really gotten away, I think, from the transfer portal. I think he went to the transfer portal the past 2 years, and it didn't have the same feel in terms of the way that the roster was put together. And now we've got some good players at Kentucky through the transfer portal, but this to me has the feel of a vintage Calipari recruiting class. Robert Dillingham, DJ Wagner, Justin Edwards, a young man who, when I was doing the Iverson Classic last spring for CBS, I felt was the top prospect in this class, along with Isaiah Collier. I think Kentucky is going to be better late than it is early, but during tournament time, I think this is a team that definitely has the potential to reach the second weekend and do some damage. And, Zach, one of the interesting things, I've been covering the sport now close to 20 years at the national level. The SEC has transitioned as a conference, and this is what I mean by that. For so long, it was Kentucky when Calipari was at Kentucky and Billy Donovan was at Florida. It was Kentucky and Florida and everybody else. Now, all of a sudden, it's a league with great volume.
Absolutely.
Tennessee has become a team that's a known commodity under Rick Barnes.
Arkansas.
Tennessee's averaged 24 wins a year, the last 6 years. Arkansas, Alabama's had good teams under NATO. It's Auburn and Bruce Pearl have a very consistent product. Buzz Williams is at Texas A&M. I don't know if the SEC is the best conference in college basketball, but I do know this. The SEC has a chance to push for the most representation in the 2024 NCAA tournament among power conference teams. Wouldn't shock me if 8 or 9 are right there on Selection Sunday.
Well, give me a team or two, Jon Rothstein, that you're hot on that some people aren't really talking about entering this season.
5 dark horse candidates right now for the 2024 Final Four. When I say dark horse, I want to make sure that they're off the radar. St. Mary's out of the West Coast Conference. Gales haven't been back to the NCAA tournament's second weekend since 2010. Great young guard in Aiden Mahaney. They also have another player who I think is going to make a big jump in Augustus Marshallonis, the son of Sarunas Marshallonis. But remember, St. Mary's played UConn in the round of 32. A big portion of that nucleus is back. I mentioned Texas A&M. Texas A&M, again, made the NCAA tournament last year. Wade Taylor, the 4th All-American candidate. Returning starters include Tyrese Radford and Henry Coleman. Julius Marble right now, currently suspended, not a part of the team. That's something to monitor. But A&M right now actively with 3 starters back, and obviously a coach in Buzz Williams that has taken multiple programs, Marquette and Virginia Tech, to the Sweet 16. Why not Memphis? Penny Hardaway has gotten away from taking, obviously, the talented freshmen like Precious Achiuwa, like James Wiseman, players in that mold, and now has put together a roster loaded with transfers. Zach, last night when Memphis opened the 23-24 college basketball season, as of last night, the average age in Memphis's starting 5 was 23 years old. That's 3 Final Four dark horses, 2 more. 1 played last night in Las Vegas. It's USC, simply because of the perimeter pop that this team has with Isaiah Collier, with Boogie Ellis, and a player in Kobe Johnson, who I firmly believe will be to the Trojans this season what Jalen Clark was for UCLA a year ago. He will be the best perimeter defender in the Pac-12. And I wrap it up with Illinois. Illinois is a team who I felt never had good chemistry last year. Brad Underwood went to the transfer portal, wanted to get older, did so by adding Southern Illinois grad transfer Marcus Domask and also Justin Harmon from Utah Valley. Illinois is playing now with great positional size and great depth, and with multiple players in the starting lineup, Terrence Shannon Jr., Ty Rodgers, Marcus Domask, who we talked about, and Luke Goody, who was hurt at the start of last season, but finally got healthy towards the end, who stands 6'6" or taller. I think right now, Illinois, Maryland, and Wisconsin are right behind Purdue and Michigan State at the top of the Big Ten.
Last thing for Jon Rothstein. I know LeBron James gave an encouraging update last night on Bronny James. We still don't know when he's going to come back, but when he does get on a basketball court, what are you hearing about the type of player that he could be in the college game this year?
I saw Bronny James in practice. Obviously, he could be a really nice piece to USC's depth. USC, though, needs to obviously, make sure that he's obviously in the best mental state. That's the most important thing for him beyond basketball. But I think you're looking at USC right now as a team that pound for pound, inch for inch, has the most complete perimeter in the sport. I wrote about this today. Isaiah Collier looked the part last night of a first-team All-American, of a lottery pick. Boogie Ellis, again, to me, was the guy I thought was the Pac-12 preseason player of the year. And I'll say it again. Kobe Johnson will be to USC this year what Jalen Clark was to UCLA last year.
He's the great Jon Rothstein on behalf of FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. John, happy college basketball season. Thanks so much for doing this.
Thanks, Zach. We sleep in May.
There you go. The great Jon Rothstein with us on CBS Sports Radio. Let's get the latest CBS Sports Radio update in with the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Lawrence, now in his 3rd year, is the graybeard of quarterbacks in the AFC South. The other 3 teams have started rookies this year, and the Titans are turning over the reins to second-round pick Will Levis, with head coach Mike Vrabel saying that Levis will start this weekend and Ryan Tannehill will be the backup despite being healthy. The Rams are adding depth at the quarterback spot, reportedly signing former second pick overall Carson Wentz. The Bears host the Panthers Thursday. Justin Fields was a limited practice participant today, and Jedrick Wills of the Browns headed to IR because of an injured knee. The NBA has the night off for Election Day, while the college basketball season got underway last night and continues with 2 more games in the top 25. 20th-ranked Baylor will meet Auburn in South Dakota. The Bears are coming off a 23-win season last year that ended with a tournament loss to Creighton. The Blue Jays enter this season ranked 8th in the nation despite 2 key losses. However, center Ryan Kalkbrenner is back along with Trey Alexander, and they will be in action tonight against Florida A&M. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is Jim Rome. We are talking to the biggest names in all of sports in the jungle weekdays from 12 to 3 Eastern on CBS Sports Radio.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. 1 minute remaining. $45 seconds remaining. $30 seconds remaining. $15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
This portion of the show is brought to you by Wesley Financial. Stuck in a timeshare and want out? Contact Wesley Financial Group now and get a free timeshare exit information kit at wesleyfinancialgroup.com. So, two things. We'll get back to the college football playoff rankings that have come out tonight. A new rankings will be unveiled at 7 p.m. Eastern. I'll give you some thoughts looking into that. But first, I did see LeBron James on his return to Miami. Did have some quotes last night. He said, I think I would still be at this level no matter if I would have came here or not, said Lakers star LeBron James now in his 21st season. Let's not get it twisted. The 4 years I was here, it was amazing. I loved everything about it. Loved this franchise. The franchise is top tier. It's one of the best franchises in the world. But as far as my career was going to be my career as far as individual because I know how much I put into the game and I know how much I strive to be as great as I could be. But as far as what I was able to learn here was second to none, that's for sure. So one thing on this, I understand where LeBron is coming from in terms of regardless of where I would have gone, what I control individually, I know I would have been great. But I do think it's fair to wonder, would we look at LeBron as either the greatest or second greatest player of all time, depending where you fall in that debate? And we're not doing that debate today because I absolutely hate it because it just turns into ridiculous screaming, oh, LeBron's great, Michael Jordan sucks, or Michael Jordan's the best and LeBron James sucks. And there's no having an actual dialogue and conversation about it. It's ridiculous how you put one person down to build another person up and make it seem as if one of those guys are a bum and the other is just like this untouchable, when we all know both of them are untouchables and neither are bums, but that's what the conversation and the discourse turns into. But I do think it's safe to ask, if LeBron never did go to Miami, would he have 4 championships? Because LeBron in Cleveland, the first time, the teams were awful. Like when they got to that NBA Finals up against the Spurs, his first NBA Finals appearance, you had like Daniel Boobie Gibson as one of the second or third best players on that team. So he left Cleveland knowing he had to go somewhere else to win a championship. He wins 2 championships in Miami and then loses 2 other times in the NBA Finals. Had his worst individual moment ever as a pro with that series up against the Dallas Mavericks, and then loses the second time around up against the San Antonio Spurs with him just being in Miami. So he gets 2 championships in Miami. Then he goes back to Cleveland, wins his most important championship with the Cleveland Cavaliers, but all the years in Cleveland, it only produced 1 championship. And I don't mean only in a bad way, because that championship meant the world to Cleveland. It meant the world to LeBron James. Then he goes to Stu's Lakers, and he's only won 1 championship. To be fair, many people thought he was never going to win 1 championship when going to LA, so he did win a championship. But unless you are Magic Johnson, I don't think anyone's picking the Lakers to go to the NBA Finals this year, because you can't trust the duo of LeBron and AD, especially since ever going to LA. You've had LeBron's body, I don't want to say break down, but he started to suffer injuries and miss games, which he used to never do. And Anthony Davis, like every other fourth day, finds a way to get hurt. So you look at that and you say, individually, you would have gone on to accomplish what you did regardless of where you are, but we know how this is viewed. It's different what you think compared to how we view it. Because we all know championships are the utmost importance in these dopey GOAT debates. And if you didn't go to Miami, I can't sit here and say you would have won 2 championships in Cleveland. I can't sit here and say that you would have won 2 championships in LA. Maybe you would have just won 1 in Cleveland, or you would have just won 1 in Los Angeles. So I think he needed to go to Miami, A, to win his first 2 championships and win his first NBA championship, but also to win multiple championships. And who knows, right? They assembled a team that was LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. That was the vision. If he would have stayed in Cleveland, are you getting the big stars to Cleveland? Maybe you get one other star. Now, you had Kyrie, but maybe you get one other star, but I don't think you're getting multiple stars to form a big 3 in Cleveland. And could he have gone elsewhere? Well, then what was the destination outside of Miami that you would have gone to? There's been like reports that him and Melo were going to team up, other things like that. So, yes, I do think you needed to go to Miami, not to be great. We all know that you're a great player, but to win more championships, you needed to go to Miami, because other than that, you may have just won the 1 championship in Cleveland and the 1 championship in LA. And if you only had 2 championships, it would have been viewed as a disappointment with the greatness that you possess on the basketball court, arguably being the greatest basketball player of all time. Sam, to your thoughts on these comments by LeBron?
Well, I think it's interesting because he's almost talking about it like he had to go to Miami and he didn't, things would. But
he basically equated it going to college Miami, like grow up before the pass.
But there were other options for him. Like, you forget, the Bulls were a big option. The Knicks were a big option, right? The Bulls had Derrick Rose pre-injury, I believe. Joakim Noah, the Knicks, Amari Stoudemire.
But is he winning a championship at any of those spots?
And, like, Miami's great. Don't get me wrong, right? It's a fantastic city. It's a big market. New York is the Garden. He even talks about the Garden as a visiting player.
But how many times do players just like to go to visit there? Right? When was the last time a big star signed with New York? It was Carmelo Anthony via a trade, but the Knicks have had problems getting big-time superstars there. Now, if LeBron's there, I think someone else joins him, but I can't say it leads necessarily to a championship.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
That's what I'm talking about. That's right. It is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on CBS Sports Radio. We have an hour to play on this very quick Tuesday edition of the show. Coming up 20 minutes from now, James Bradberry from the 8-1 Philadelphia Eagles as they enter their bye week. And coming out of their bye week, they have the Kansas City, how about those Chiefs, on Monday Night Football in Week 11. But first up, it is a Tuesday coming off Week 9 in the National Football League. We'll get to a little overreaction, proper reaction right now.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy.
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
And I'm just going to say this at the start of the segment right now. We have big-time news on Moist Mike Samter that I have to go to the source in overreaction, proper reaction at the end of this segment. But there are a lot of things being said about Moist Mike right now, and I got to get to the bottom of this. But first to the football. What do we got, Moist Mike?
I don't know who that is. Carson Wentz has finally found a team, signing with the Rams as their backup with Matthew Stafford battling various injuries. Now, Wentz threw for 27 touchdowns as recently as 2021 with the Colts, but obviously struggled last year in Washington. So overreaction, proper reaction, Carson Wentz can still be a serviceable starting quarterback in the NFL.
Are you just trying to get me to sound off today and yell? I'm going to be very calm. I'm going to breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Carson will not control me. That's what my therapist told me because I yelled too much about Carson Wentz. A serviceable quarterback.
You are sitting in Carson's corner, basically.
No, that doesn't exist. We kicked that out of this studio. Carson's corner. The last time this guy was a serviceable quarterback was when he played like an MVP. And that was all the way back in 2017. Now, you could make a case in like 2019 he was good the final 3 games of the season.
2021 he was good except for the last couple games.
Stop. With the Colts?
27 touchdowns. They were a playoff team except for that last game.
What Carson Wentz was to the Colts that year is what James Franklin is to Penn State football. Where even though the stats and the numbers look good, in reality, everyone knew he wasn't the guy. He played terribly up against Tennessee, had that awful interception against the Rams, and also in the final game of the season against the lowly pathetic at the time Jacksonville Jaguars, where their fans were dressing up as clowns, he lost the game. So serviceable in the NFL? Yeah, no chance. His NFL career as a legitimate starting quarterback in this league is shot, it's done, it's over with. So you ask me, Carson Wentz can still be a serviceable starting NFL QB. That is an overreaction.
Well, through 9 weeks, the NFL rushing leader is Christian McCaffrey with just 652 yards. And he's on pace to lead the NFL in rushing with just over 1,300 yards. Since 1973, the NFL's leading rusher had under 1,400 yards just 3 times. So it feels like it's a very down year for the running back position. So overreaction, proper reaction. Running back is the least important position in football right now. And I'm not including the punter.
What about fullback?
Let's kick out fullback also. Fullback and punter don't count.
Okay. Then I would say that this is a proper reaction because I'm not saying the run game isn't important. To win football games, you need a run game. But the individuality of the running back position for the last decade is not important. Where you look at teams that win Super Bowls, whether it's the Chiefs or the Patriots or the Eagles or even the Denver Broncos, whoever those teams are that have won Super Bowls, we've not had a bell cow back win a Super Bowl in a long time. Those teams go by running back by committee. So needing a Derrick Henry, needing a Christian McCaffrey, needing an Ezekiel Elliott when he was rolling, and Adrian Peterson, yeah, you want those guys because those guys are really good. But then when you have to pay them, it takes away from other resources. And you see the teams that win, they win with like 2-3 running backs, and you just continue to turn through them throughout the course of the season.
All right, now C.J. Stroud is lighting up the Texans, sitting 7th in passing yards through 8 games, throwing 14 touchdowns and just 1 pick. Yesterday, running back Dare Ogunbowale told you that there's a comparison between him and Tom Brady.
You see any similarities being around Brady when you start off the early tenure with C.J. Stroud?
Yeah, I would definitely say that command and that leadership, like I said, I mean, CJ's got it. He gets into the huddle, everyone's confident that play is going to be a successful play just because even the way he barks it out, you know. So, yeah, CJ's got it, and I would definitely say there's similarities there between the two of them.
Pretty early to make that comparison, but hey, that's not me. Overreaction.
He was just answering the question, to be fair.
Well, then maybe it was the question that's a little bit crazy to me.
I think it's a good question. I'm not saying that you have to compare Brady to Stroud in terms of Stroud's going to be Brady, but he's been around Brady, he's been around Stroud. Are there any similarities? I think it's a very fair question.
So overreaction, proper reaction. C.J. Stroud is already a top 10 NFL quarterback.
So the guys playing right now when you go division by division, absolutely top 10 quarterbacks. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence. That's the AFC, that's 6. In the NFC, Jalen Hurts is 7. Then there's no one in the NFC West. NFC North, I can't lock anybody up right there. Now, Kirk Cousins out for the year, so he doesn't count. And there's no one in the NFC South. So you have 7 quarterbacks right there, and you get to pick 3. You could make a case for Jared Goff. You could make a case for Tua Tagovailoa. You could make a case for Dak Prescott. Going to the AFC, I think we covered everybody. CJ Stroud, yeah. You know what? You know why I give CJ Stroud the edge here? It's because you look at the situation and the roster. It's not ideal. And I get it. They're not playing in the greatest division in the world. But look how he uplifted a franchise this quickly. And this is when you're going to have ups and downs in a young career. It's wild to say it through 9 weeks of the season, but I do believe that you can't tell me that there are 10 other quarterbacks right now that you definitely want to have over CJ Stroud. And also, when you look at ceiling factored into it, because let's say a guy like Jared Goff is having a very good season. I do think Jared Goff has limitations. Jared Goff's just a very good quarterback, not a great quarterback. CJ Stroud's already impressed so much through the first 9 games. You can't tell me that his ceiling long-term isn't going to be a great quarterback in this league. We'll see if he gets there, but you do have a feeling that this guy can be a great quarterback in the league. So I would say that's a proper reaction right now that CJ Stroud is a top 10 quarterback.
Now, we discussed this a little bit yesterday. The Chiefs' defense is dominating as they sit 4th in the NFL in yards allowed and 2nd in points, giving up just 16 points a game. Patrick Mahomes, on the other hand, is having a subpar year, just 17 touchdowns in 9 games, and is on pace to shatter his career high in interceptions. So overreaction, proper reaction, the Chiefs' window for titles is actually slowly starting to close.
That is an overreaction, and it's because if you have 15, you are always in it. And I'm not going to say it doesn't matter who you put around him, but he is the great eraser, and everyone did the same song and dance last year. Oh, the Chiefs are vulnerable. Oh, the Chiefs can get got. And the Chiefs won the Super Bowl last year, and the same thing's happening this year. And if the Chiefs aren't in the AFC title game, bare minimum, I think we would all be surprised. So the Chiefs' window for titles is slowly starting to close, you ask me. That is an overreaction.
All right, now all 4 teams in the AFC North are over 500, with the Ravens leading the way at 7-2, and everyone else at 5-3. Now the Steelers have some easy games coming up. They got the Packers, Cardinals, and Pats over the next 5 weeks, while the Browns get Denver, the Rams, and the Bears in their next 6-game stretch. So overreaction, proper reaction. 3 teams from the AFC North will make the playoffs.
Great question. So Dolphins, I think, win the AFC East. AFC North, I think it will be the Ravens. In the South, it's the Jaguars. In the West, it's the Chiefs. So that's the 4 division winners right there. Bengals could still win the division, but bare minimum, they're a wild card team. I think the Dolphins get in as well. I mean, the Bills, excuse me, because I said the Dolphins of the division. So that's 6 right there. Where else am I going to go? No one in the South. I'm not trusting the Chargers in the AFC West. I'm not trusting the Jets, obviously. Yeah, it's between the Steelers and the Browns. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Hoo, hoo. So, yeah, I go 3 teams from the AFC North will make the playoffs. That is a proper reaction. Toughest division in football right now.
Crazy. Now, just when the Seahawks looked at the real deal, they get smoked in Baltimore by 34. Geno Smith has just 4 touchdowns and 6 picks over his last 4 games, as Seattle fell to 5-3. So overreaction, proper reaction, the Seahawks should start looking for Geno's replacement this offseason.
I don't think you need to draft a quarterback this year because you're not going to have a good enough draft position. But I will say that this is a proper reaction because now we've seen a lot of quarterbacks get traded. Matthew Stafford got traded. Jared Goff got traded. Carson Wentz even got traded. Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson. So it doesn't always work, right? A lot of those guys I just mentioned, some of them is like, can we get a do-over? Can we get a take-back? Stafford won a Super Bowl. So you win some, you lose some. But if a guy like Kyler Murray becomes available, probably the Cardinals don't trade him in their own division. But if someone becomes available, or if you could get Kirk Cousins in Seattle, I think that's better, either of those 2 names, than Geno Smith. I don't believe Geno is as bad as the way that he's played the last 2 weeks, but I don't think he's the answer and he's the guy long-term on the remaining of this new contract that he signed. So I do think it would behoove you, where you don't have to pounce, but at least keep an ear out there and two eyes open when names do become available. So I'll say proper reaction. You say the Seahawks should look for Gino's replacement this offseason.
Now, we were talking about the playoff teams, and you mentioned the Bills and the Dolphins. The Dolphins fell in Germany on Sunday. And here's a crazy stat. They have now gone 407 days since beating a team over 500. A span of 7 games dating back to week 3 of last year. So they are not they're beating up on the bad teams and getting beat up by the good teams.
Wow.
So the Bills, they lost as well, but they sit just a game back of the Finns in the East. And that was obviously a much closer match against the Bengals. So overreaction, proper reaction. The Bills are still a better, more dangerous team than the Dolphins.
I'm going to go overreaction there, and 2 reasons. The Dolphins' offense is right now better than the Buffalo Bills. The Bills basically keep on asking Josh Allen to do everything, and that's when eventually a hole will be in Superman's cape and it will get ripped off of him and it won't be able to fly, as great as Josh Allen is. But the problem with the Bills is they used to have this really special defense. That defense has regressed. Von Miller, hopefully he gets back up to speed. He's clearly not 100% coming off that injury last year. But they've now lost Tre'Davious White. They had to trade for Rasul Douglas at the trade deadline, which was a good move. And Matt Milano. Those 2 pieces were enormous for them. There's just nothing about the Bills that I feel great about. I think the Bills are just a good team. I think the Dolphins are just a good team. But the firepower and the consistency of a Tyreek Hill and a Jalen Waddle, I know is going to, for the most part, show up almost every week when you're trying to see who's better between the 2 teams when they're both very good. So I trust the Dolphins more than the Bills. And also what I like, Miami last year displayed that they could play Buffalo. They played them 3 times. I know they lost twice. One was a Skylar Thompson. The other one was a very close loss. But this year they got blown out by the Bills. I think that matchup when they go to Miami and the next time around will be different and the Dolphins will win. So I will take the Dolphins over the Bills this year. So you ask me, the Bills are still a better and more dangerous team than the Dolphins. I will go overreaction. Now, to the overreaction, proper reaction that everybody is waiting for. On Twitter, a very reliable Twitter account, Pat Boyle's dad just tweeted me. Now, I don't think this is actually Pat Boyle's real father, but the Twitter account is Pat Boyle's father at Pat Boyle's dad. He sent me his ballot because today is election day. Erie General Elections 2023. District Attorney is up for grabs. It's a 4-year term. It says vote for 1. Pat Boyle's dad wrote in Moist Mike Samter. So I don't know if you're going to get any more votes, but you did get 1 vote. If you win, are you resigning from the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio and going to be the district attorney for 4 years for the Erie General election in Erie County? Just wondering.
Listen, the people over in Erie would be blessed to have my talents. Now, I might not know a lot about the law. I might not know anything about the law, but I sure know a lot about how to run things and do stuff.
That's not where I thought he was going. I thought he was like, run from a train wreck that's this show.
Yeah. I know things. I know how to argue. Like, I would be great like my cousin Vinny, right?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the rules or the laws, the decorum, but I'm a damn good arguer. So I'll stand up there and I'll argue at the top of my lungs for whatever it is that I think I should probably be arguing for.
You'd be a good little litigious weasel.
Yeah, but I have no idea what I'm talking about. So yes, Erie, Pennsylvania, I got you covered. Ladies and gentlemen of Erie, if you need a district attorney, vote Moist Mike.
Wow.
2024.
He just said it still. I never thought he would acknowledge himself as Moist Mike. The nickname's growing on him.
It just took him getting some more power to use the word.
So you're out on this show if you win. You're done. You're gone.
I might be out on the show today even if I lose. That 1 vote might be enough for me to start my own political career.
Moist Mike, 2024. I'm Zach Gelb. I approve this message. All right, Zach Gelb Show, CBS Sports Radio. You know what we got to do? We got to get Paul Turner, the big voice guy, to just make Moist Mike political campaigns. And I come up with a few by the end of the week, or maybe by tomorrow. And I need the big voice guy in Paul Turner at CBS Sports Radio just give us some crazy political campaigns for Moist Mike Samter. As maybe we'll delay. We'll petition. We will not accept the results of this election going on right now, and we will delay the Erie general election to see if we could stuff some more ballots for the great Moist Mike. I don't know if we have the power to do that, but probably not. But Who knows? I don't get very political either. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. James Bradberry from the 8-1 Philadelphia Eagles will join us next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. .45 seconds remaining. .30 seconds remaining. .15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Now back to the Zach Gelb Show.
The Eagles are rolling. NFC champions from a year ago. To start this season, they are 8-1 entering their bye. Coming out of the bye, a Super Bowl rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs. And now joining us is their Pro Bowl cornerback, James Bradberry. And just remember, Big Brother, Big Sister Independence Fashion Touchdown is on Monday, November 13th. Tickets are still on sale and can be purchased at fashiontouchdown.org. And James Bradberry is doing some great work there. James, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. And how are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Well, I'm doing fantastic. Let me start you off with last week. Going up against the Cowboys, we all know how big that game is inside the NFC East. A fun one that goes your way right down to the wire. Take a look back at the Cowboys game for me.
Well, it was definitely a big game for us because it was a division rival, and they also a really elite team over there because they got a great offense, a great defense, and a pretty good special teams as well. So it's a tough battle for us, but like you said, we was able to make enough plays to come out with the victory.
You guys now are entering your bye week. You're 8-1. We all know how dominant this team can be, and the record reflects how great of a team that you guys are. When you look at the first 9 games, what has really impressed you so far with this group that you have in Philadelphia?
I think we've just been able to somehow win. We haven't always played our best as far as defense, offense, and special teams overall, but we find ways to get down the stretch and win and make enough plays for us to get the victory.
Yeah, and that's the weird part about it because 8-1's 8-1. We all know how tough it is to win in this league, but when you're winning these close games, people start to criticize and say, oh, the Eagles aren't as good as what their record says. And I say to that, well, they're 8-1. If you guys could play better, man, that's going to be scary for the rest of the league. Just what's the message to people that are doubting your football team even after an 8-1 start?
I think first and foremost, we're only worried about the opinions that's in the building. But secondly, if I did have something to say to the people outside the building, it's the NFL at the end of the day. You're going against professionals. So the games, they're going to be close. They're going to be competitive. I know last year, a lot of our victories are a little lopsided and we was able to blow people out. But that doesn't always happen. And that was last year. This is a new year. And we got new coaches, we got new players, and we're still trying to figure out the chemistry and figure out the ins and outs of what our team is going to be. But at the end of the day, we're winning, and I think that's most important.
How about your new defensive coordinator? I know Jonathan Gannon's the new head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Sean Desai comes in. What has he been able to bring to this football team on the defensive side of the ball?
I think he's just been able to bring his overall knowledge of the game. He looks at the game from a different perspective than a player might look at it. And having a coach that's very, very smart and is able to put us in position to make plays and help us to get those victories is very important. And so I would say that he's definitely brought a knowledge of the game to our team and to our defense.
Talking to James Bradberry from the 8-1 Philadelphia Eagles. With how last season ended, you know what the goal is this year. It's to get back to the Super Bowl and win it. Now, when teams have that goal, sometimes people look too far ahead and it catches up to them. How has this team been able to really, truly just focus on 1 week at a time, as cliche as it sounds?
I think we first got good veteran leadership. The guys in our locker room, they help us and prepare us week in and week out to make sure we focus just on that week. And then secondly, we've had a tough schedule. We played some really, really good teams. We got a tough schedule coming in after the bye, starting off with the Chiefs. And that's kind of how we've been able to keep our focus. We always have a tough opponent during that week, and that's what gets us our juices flowing and gets us motivated just to focus on that 1 week.
How would you describe the leadership skills of your quarterback in Jalen Hurts? Because he seems like the definition of a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say he's you could tell he's an even keel type of guy. He doesn't really get too high, doesn't get too low. And I feel like that's the best mentality to have as a football player because you're able to deal with the highs and lows of the game. And, he always has the right thing to say. I don't know where he gets that from or what you would call it, but a guy that is always has some positive to say and has the right thing to say at the right time, kind of get the guys motivated. That's what you need from your leadership. You need a guy that can pretty much, I guess, correlate with the people that he's dealing with, his teammates and whatnot, and be on one accord with them and say the right things to them.
James Bradberry here with us. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you how you're feeling. I know towards the end of the game you did go down with an injury. Where's your health at?
Oh, I'm doing good. Of course, as you saw on the play, I kind of tweaked my knee. But fortunately, it's just a little soreness waking up the next day. And I've been able to move around, get a workout in, run around a little bit. And I'm feeling good going into the bye week.
Well, that's good, and it's good timing for the bye week. Coming out of the bye, you got the big Super Bowl rematch. Will you definitely be playing up against the Chiefs?
Oh, yeah, I definitely plan on being out there. Yeah, I'm not going to miss anything.
Well, how about that Super Bowl rematch? We know how close of a game it was last year. We were right in the middle of it with the holding penalty. Just what's on your mind as you guys get set to prepare for the Kansas City Chiefs?
For me, and I think for the team overall, we're going to let last year be last year. And we know we're going to face a Kansas City Chiefs offense that's really elite, and the defense is really good as well. And that's our mindset. We're playing another really, really good opponent. And we're not really going to try to think about last year. We're just going to think about this year and try and defeat those guys and move on to the next opponent after that week.
Well, what's the toughest part about going up against Patrick Mahomes with how great of a football player he is?
I think he has an elite skill set. First starting off with his arm. He's able to make throws that other quarterbacks really aren't able to make. And then you add in the fact that he can run and make plays with his legs. That's the second thing that you have to worry about. And he's also a smart quarterback as well. And they have a great coach over there in Andy Reid. He does a good job putting those guys in good position. And you add in the receivers that he has as far as Kelsey. And then you also got a great O-line and a good running game. With number 10, I don't really know how to pronounce his last name, but he's a really good running back. So they're able to attack you in different ways.
Wrap it up with James Bradberry. We'll talk about this great event that he's doing, Big Brothers Big Sisters Independence Fashion Touchdown on Monday, November 13th. Tickets are still on sale and can be purchased at www.fashiontouchdown.org. Just going back to the Super Bowl, I thought you were classy with the way that you handled the holding penalty after the game. I didn't think the flag should have been thrown. Looking back at that, do you still have the same stance as why you understood why the flag was thrown?
Oh, yeah, I still have the same stance. It is what it is at the end of the day. And I'm just, working real hard week in and week out to hopefully get another opportunity to redeem myself.
Well, let's get to your big boys up front because we only know a great secondary is only as good as the guys that are getting to the quarterback. You guys are just loaded in the trenches. We know on the offense side of the ball, but on the defensive side of the ball as well. Just how about the depth of this football team and really the depth of this defense?
Yeah, I think we got a good combination of young guys and veteran leadership. But, you got BG, you got Fletch, you got Sweaty, you got Haas. Then you got some younger guys like Milton, JC, Tua. Who else am I missing? You got Nolan Smith. We got a whole bunch of guys on that D-line that can get after the quarterback. And fortunately, we got a good rotation of veteran guys and young guys that kind of help lead the young guys along the way and kind of help them take care of their body throughout the season because it's a long season. Help prepare them for the NFL on and off the field, and also just tell them how the league works and how defenses are run and how you need to attack these offensive linemen because these offensive linemen in the league are really, really skilled.
All right, before we let you run, tell me about the great event that you're doing with Big Brother, Big Sister Independence Fashion Touchdown on Monday, November 13th.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give back to the community because, the community does a good job of supporting us, and it's going to be a fashion show. I'm going to be walking. This is my first time actually doing a fashion show and actually getting up there on the runway and walking, so I'm excited to be able to participate and thankful to be able to give back to the community. And Big Brother, Big Sister, they do a good job of providing mentorship to the youth, and I'm all about mentorship. And I feel like we need more mentorship to play their part in the world today because youth is, we need it. We know what's going on with youth day in and day out and what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And just hopefully I can bring more light and more recognition to what those guys at Big Brother and Big Sister are doing.
During the bye week, have you been working on your pose and maybe a signature stare coming down that runway during the fashion show?
You know what? I haven't, but you just brought to my attention that I should. So I'm probably going to start practicing that tomorrow.
Watch the movie Zoolander. You got to get that blue steel look. That would be my recommendation. Last thing I just want to ask you You've been in the league now for a while, since 2016. You're with the Panthers, the Giants, now the last few years with the Eagles. Last year got a lot of recognition, making the Pro Bowl and a second-team All-Pro. You're now 30. You've been in the league for a while. You have an incredible story. Just what do you want people to know about your journey and where you're at right now individually as a football player?
I mean, what I would like them to know about me is, I think first and foremost, I'm a guy that went to a small school, and I was able to, get drafted from a small school. And I know, especially like talking to the younger guys that's in college and that's in high school, a lot of guys, they want to go to these big schools and they want to hurry up and get into the transfer portal and whatnot and look for a better opportunity. But sometimes you just got to stick it out and stick with the process, and also just enjoy your journey and live in the moment. And as far as like me being in the league, I've been a lot of hard work and dedication being put into it, and I'm also trying to get back to community. So where I'm at right now in the league is that's my goal is to also produce on the field, but also try to get back into the community, whether it's here in Philly or whether it's back home in Birmingham, Alabama, and do more for the community and just spread the wealth that I've been given based off what I've been able to do in this league.
Well, phenomenal answer. Good luck the rest of the way. Good health the rest of the season as well. James Bradberry, we appreciate you jumping on board with us today.
Appreciate you.
There you go. James Bradberry from the 8-1 Philadelphia Eagles. Once again, if you want to go get tickets to the event that he's participating in, it's www.fashiontouchdown.org. We'll come on back. We'll take a look at the playoff picture inside the AFC and the NFC 9 weeks through the season. Also, new college football playoff rankings come out tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern. What should we look for when the CFP gives out another ranking in college football? Update time first. Here he is, the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio. Sports Flash.
Will Levis played well enough at his NFL debut to merit a second start. Solid follow-up makes him the man going forward. As Titans head coach Mike Vrabel said that Levis will start this weekend and going forward, with Ryan Tannehill now serving as the backup as he's healthy once again. Carson Wentz back in the NFL, reportedly signing with the Rams, who had passed on him for Jared Goff with the number 1 pick several years ago. And the Browns' offensive line takes another hit with Jedrick Wills going on IR with injured knee. Also, Justin Fields, a limited practice participant with the Bears, the Thursday night matchup this week. Sunday's game in Europe between the Chiefs and Dolphins, a terrific matchup, and it showed in the ratings with 9.6 million viewers tuning in, the largest audience for an NFL Network international game. The college basketball season tipped off yesterday, and there are a pair of games in the top 25 tonight. Creighton ranked 8th in the country in what figures to be a very strong year in the Big East. The Blue Jays host Florida A&M to open the season, while Baylor ranked 20th, projected to finish 4th in a packed Big 12 this year. The Bears will open up in South Dakota against Auburn. I'm Rich Ackerman.
CBS Sports Radio is everywhere, at home, in your car, and of course on your phone and tablet. Find us on your local affiliate, SiriusXM Channel 158, or the free Odyssey app.
CBS Sports Radio.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide on CBS Sports Radio. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God, we're back again.
All righty, this is Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. So the second installment of the college football playoff rankings come out tonight in a little over 2 hours at 7 p.m. Eastern. And or a little under 2 hours, excuse me, at 7 p.m. Eastern. And when we take a look at the latest rankings, things to monitor, here are the three things that I'm most curious about. Will Ohio State still be number one? Personally, I think Ohio State's the most overrated team in the country. Where they're a really good team, they have a great defense, they have the best non-quarterback in the country in Marvin Harrison Jr., but I don't trust the rest of their offense and Kyle McCord. So last week, the committee told you they're 8-0. They're number one because they beat 2 top 15 teams. With Penn State last week, who was at 11, and then Notre Dame, who's going to fall. Notre Dame loses to Clemson, and Notre Dame was 15 last week. Ohio State just struggled with Rutgers, who, in their defense of Greg Schiano, has done a good job this year. And Schiano has done a good job at Rutgers in the first stint, and now he's starting to move that program for whatever they could say is acceptable in the Big Ten, as so much is working against them in the second installment of Greg Schiano as their head coach. And also, a little friendly rivalry here. And these two teams have been working in cahoots, Ohio State and Rutgers, according to some reports today by John U. Bacon, to take down Michigan and giving signs to Purdue in the Big Ten championship game. So maybe Ryan Day said, Greg Schiano, we'll scratch your back a little bit. We'll let you hang around, and then we'll find a way to beat you by 2-3 touchdowns in the second half. But I don't believe Ohio State should be number one. I do think Georgia should move up to 1, and then we'll see how far the committee wants to move Ohio State back. The other thing I want to look for, Washington, who had the best win in the rankings, in the college football playoff ranking last week, when they were ranked 5 and they beat Oregon 6. They had the highest win against one of the rankings of the college football playoff. They just took care of USC, who's going to fall out of the top 25, but USC was in at 20. So I don't understand how the committee can continue through 2 weeks to keep Washington out. I got to think, even though Florida State's done a phenomenal job this year, they're undefeated and they control their own destiny. And let's be real, right? One of these Big Ten teams are going to fall out. We'll see what happens if Georgia could go undefeated and win the SEC once again. The winner of the Big Ten is going to get in. And then if Florida State runs the table as an undefeated ACC champion, they're going to get in. And Washington controls their own destiny, undefeated as well. But for Washington, it doesn't make sense if you're telling me Oregon's the 6th best team in the country. And out of all the teams inside the top 25, Washington has the highest ranked victory up against an opponent inside the top 10 to keep Washington out of the top 4. And then the other thing that I'm really curious to see, I actually got 2 more for you. Even though this wouldn't make sense, I do feel as if Bama is going to move up a few spots tonight. And last week it was Ohio State 1, Georgia was 2, Michigan was 3, Florida State was 4, Washington's 5, Oregon is 6, Texas is 7, Alabama is 8. Last week, and I know Bama has a loss. Like, don't say, oh, Zach, but Alabama has a loss. Like, I know that. They lost to Texas. But Alabama last week heard from the committee and all the other schools that the reason why Ohio State was number 1 is because they had 2 top 15 victories. Alabama, where we currently sit, heading into last weekend and then what happened, and now we'll see what the new rankings are, they have a win up against number 10 Ole Miss, and they also had a win up against number 14 this past weekend, LSU. Now, LSU is going to fall down in a few spots. But if they have 2 top 15 wins at the time that these games were played, is Bama not going to move up? I got to think that they will. And even though it makes no sense for Bama to move past Texas, because Bama and Texas have the same record, and Texas beat Alabama head-to-head, you know it and I know it. This committee wants reaction. This committee wants headlines. This committee doesn't want to just do the show and have nobody talk about it immediately after the show and then leading into tomorrow as well. It would make no sense that Bama jumps in front of Texas, but I actually think the committee is going to put Bama in front of Texas, and I want to see how they justify it, because if you watch college football, Texas defeated Alabama this year. So if they have the same record, it'd be like one thing if Texas had 2 losses and Alabama only had 1 loss. But when you have the same record of 7-1, and you know that the SEC is a better conference than the Big 12, even though Bama shouldn't move in front of Texas just now, I have a feeling the committee is going to do this. And last week, everyone that was speaking from the committee said They did not factor in the pending investigation and the allegations against Michigan. That's going to be a national talking point to monitor. Does Michigan get graded on a scale here with more information coming out, even though I don't think they should? It seems like a punishment's coming right around the corner to Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh is going to appeal that, and he'll get an injunction. And this will get all punted until after the season. You got to think and assume that. I don't think the committee is going to change anything up with Michigan, but those are just the things that I want to monitor tonight. Does Ohio State still remain number one? I don't think they will. I think Michigan's going to stay put right there at number 3. I do believe Washington will jump Florida State and get into the top 4. And then, even though it shouldn't happen, I think it will happen, though, that Bama will move in front of Texas this weekend, even though they are both, or tonight, even though they're both 7-1, and Texas beat Alabama head-to-head. All righty. So now we have 9 weeks of the NFL season. Right now, if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, these would be your matchups. The Chiefs and the Eagles both would be on a bye. The Ravens would be a 2 seed going up against the Cincinnati Bengals as a 7 seed. Now, we just saw that last wild card weekend. It was in Cincinnati, and Lamar Jackson wasn't playing. It was Tyler Huntley. But think about that heavyweight fight. Then you would have the Jaguars as the 3 seed going up against the Cleveland Browns, and you'd have the Dolphins going up against the Steelers. That would be a tremendous AFC wild card weekend. Now, the Bills would be on the outside looking in. The Texans are on the outside looking in. The Chargers and Jets as well, and that's where we'll draw the line in the sand. I don't think the Jets will be a playoff team because they don't have a quarterback. The Chargers, I don't trust them. Even last night when you win and the score would indicate that it was a one-sided game, the Chargers just keep on appearing like they're missing it. And what I mean by that is I don't think this team is all in on their head coach, the players, with Brandon Staley, and it's showing because they have too much talent to only be 4-4 to start out this season. The Texans are a fun story. I think the Texans can be a little bit dangerous because they're playing with no expectations, but I don't think the Texans make the playoffs. So if the Steelers and Browns continue to stack wins at 5-3, and I'm assuming the Dolphins are to win the AFC East, even though they're 6-3, and that's not a foregone conclusion, there's a possibility that the Bills miss the playoffs. Now, I would still put Buffalo in, and I still think Buffalo gets into the postseason. But with that being said, it's going to be really intriguing to see if Buffalo can still find a way to make the playoffs with where they were a few years ago, where they were even heading into last year as being everyone's Super Bowl darling in the pick. And there's a legitimate chance they miss the playoffs this year. Keeping it moving into the NFC. The Eagles are on a bye. You would have the Lions as the 2 seed. Lions, Vikings, NFC North showdown. Josh Dobbs against Jared Goff right now, wild card weekend. That's the Saturday, right? 4:25 p.m. Eastern time game, which if you're a Lions fan, who cares? You haven't won a division title since 1993. You haven't won a playoff game since 1991, so you take it. The Niners would be the 3 seed going up against the 6 seed Dallas Cowboys, which if you're a Cowboy fan, that's your worst nightmare because the last 3 times you played the 49ers, you lost to them, and somehow you regressed this year in the regular season. Could that have maybe vibes of the Patriots beating the Jets 45-3 and then losing to them in the divisional round? You'll have to wait and see. And you'd have the Saints going up against the Seahawks. Man, look at the AFC matchups compared to the NFC matchups. The NFC matchups are a little bit underwhelming. But you're starting to see that picture get painted. The teams that be on the outside looking in right now, the Commanders, the Falcons, man, the Bucs are the 10th seed right now, and the Packers, they're the 11th. They're both 3-5. Whew, that's ugly. So you start to look at it through 9 weeks. I think the way that you have to separate this, who are your Super Bowl contenders? In the AFC, I think there's only 3 right now. It's the Chiefs, it's the Ravens, and the Bengals. Those are the 3 teams I trust the most in the AFC. I know some Jaguar fans may say, oh, well, what about us? We're 6-2. I really think Jacksonville's a good team. I like Jacksonville. You could buy stock in Jacksonville, but I got to see them beat a marquee opponent. And the Bills this year aren't a marquee opponent. And you had one week 2, even when the Chiefs were vulnerable, and your offense crapped the bed and only scored 9 points. So one of those three teams, Chiefs, Ravens, Bengals, going to go to the Super Bowl this year. I'm still going with the Bengals, who are my pick before the year. In the NFC, if you listen to this show, I have not wavered on the Eagles one bit. I think the Eagles are going to the Super Bowl. I said that before the start of the season. But if you had to trust two other teams in the NFC, I think it's easy here. It's the Lions and it's the 49ers. And you probably still put the 49ers 2 and the Lions 3, even though the Niners have lost 3 games in a row and are 5-3. But if the Lions could go get the second seed in the NFC, and all they need are the Eagles to lose one more game, and then they'll have the same amount of losses, and the Eagles have a tough schedule the next 5 weeks. If the Lions could assure, with a win on Wild Card Weekend, that they would have a home divisional round game, man, that's going to be tough. I'm not saying the 49ers can't go into Detroit and get a victory. They obviously can. But if we're getting divisional round weekend, Lions and 49ers, and that game's in Detroit, that's going to be one raucous atmosphere, which could be set up for disappointment. But if you have a fan base that's been tortured for that long, coming off their first playoff victory since 1991, you're not going to want to go to Detroit. You are not going to want to play the Lions in Detroit. And that team has done a nice job this year at 6-2, even though 2 weeks ago up against the Ravens, they got blown out. Now, they were able to bounce back against the Raiders, but also it's the Raiders. You know, if you can't bounce back against the Raiders, you don't really belong in football these days. Sorry, Stu. That wasn't nice towards the end of the show. And by the way, Stu, you want to hear what was a big thought in that stadium last night, MetLife Stadium, where I was at?
What's that?
How many people said, how stupid is the NFL for not flexing Jets and Raiders Sunday night football this upcoming week? We see the Jets on Monday Night Football against the Chargers, and now we have the Jets and the Raiders on Sunday Night Football. PU.
Hey, this is the Antonio Pierce Raiders.
Oh, yeah. And very nice of him to put all the practice squad players on the sideline as well during the game. Good job by Coach Pierce. But come on. I know you guys are 1-0 after Josh McDaniels. But the rest of the country this weekend has to watch on Sunday Night Football the lousy Jets and the Raiders. That feels like an under bet to me. I don't even know what the spread is, but watch. Then we'll have like the best game of the season. It will be like 41-38. The Jets take care of the Raiders. I don't even think the Jets could score 48 points the rest of the season with that dreadful offense. All righty, fun show today. It is the Zach Gelb Show on CBS Sports Radio. The over-under, Stu just told me, is 36. Ooh, imagine taking the under and having to root for basically no points in that game. That is brutal. Big thanks to Jon Rothstein for stopping by. Big thanks to James Bradberry, Stu, Samter, as always, and each and every one of you participating, listening, calling, tweeting to the show. We'll talk to you tomorrow, everybody, at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.
Coach Samter.